Family Immortal Cultivation. Starting as a spiritual farmer, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Brothers, please read on. The third round of recommendations will be scheduled tomorrow. Please support me tomorrow. Today, I wrote nearly 6,000 words, which is roughly 3 chapters, compressed into 2 chapters. Keep reading. Chapter 52 Earthworm Breakthrough. A few days later, one night, a middle-aged man riding a black flying boat appeared over the Qingshi Lake, not far from Qingshi Mountain. He held a map in his hand, compared the location on the map, looked at the Qingshi Lake below from time to time, and muttered to himself, "The Ling family's Zhuangshu iron ore vein should be here." As soon as he finished speaking, he crushed a token engraved with the words by Ling. On the other side, in the Zhuangshu iron ore vein, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, Ling Ru, who was sitting quietly, was first startled by the sound of a token engraved with the words by Ling on his waist. He glanced at a broken token and muttered to himself, "It should be the people from the Bailing sect who came to take this year's share of the ore vein." He immediately stood up and left the mine. As soon as he rushed out of the Qingshi Lake, he saw a middle-aged man riding a flying boat in the sky, exuding a strong pressure. Ling Ruxin hesitated for a moment, waved his hand and patted the beast bag on his waist, summoned a fairy crane from it and rode it, flying to the side of the middle-aged man on the black flying boat in the sky. Ling Ruxin looked at the middle-aged man in front of him, his expression slightly changed, and bowed his hands respectfully. "Senior, are you from Bailing sect?" The middle-aged man said coldly. "Well, my name is Zhuangming. I will take the remaining 45,000 kilograms of Zhuangshu iron ore that your Ling family needs to give to the sect in the next 9 years. Ling Ruxin nodded lightly, without saying much, took out a storage bag from his arms, and handed it to Zhuangming, who was standing on the flying boat in front of him. Zhuangming took the storage bag, probed into it with his spiritual sense, and checked that the number of things in it was correct. He turned into light and disappeared here. Ling Ruxin glanced at Zhuangming's departing figure for a few times, and returned to the Zhuangshu iron ore vein. Time flies, and unknowingly, it has entered a new year. On January 1st, Ling Pengyun went to Qingshi village as usual and used the spirit stone to test the spiritual roots of the children aged between 8 and 10 in Qingshi village. Although the number of children tested for spiritual roots this time was not much different from last year, with 200 or 300 children, no one who had spiritual roots, which made Ling Pengyun a little disappointed. He also hoped that during his tenure, he could test a few more people with spiritual roots in Qingshi village through his own hands, so as to do his part to solve the family's shortage of manpower. However, after careful consideration, most of the cultivators in the clan were only 30% to 40% from the mortal world, and most of the clan members were born by cultivators. It is also normal that few people with spiritual roots are born in the mortal world. In mid-January, on the day of the spring festival, Ling Xianru, who had been stationed in the Zhuangshu mine at the bottom of Qingshi Lake for many years, rarely left the mine and went up to Qingshi Mountain to drink and chat with Ling Pengyun during the new year. This opportunity also made the childless Ling Ruxin and Ling Pengyun have a better relationship. After that, they would meet up every 7 days, either to chat, or Ling Ru first to guide Ling Pengyun to comprehend the sword tactics, or to guide cultivation, etc. This also added some color to Ling Pengyun's boring and hard training schedule. After the new year, Ling Pengyun went to the Yunwu market and wished Ling Rushu a happy new year. At the end of the year, Ling Pengyun absorbed the essence of the sun and the moon for 9 years and finally condensed a breath of yin and yang Taichu Qi. However, this breath of yin and yang Taichu Qi has not been selected yet, so Ling Pengyun did not use it. This breath of yin and yang Taichu Qi is the second one that Ling Pengyun condensed by himself. The one he took by himself was born with, and the thorny vines of his life spirit took the first one condensed. In the same year, in early February, at the time of lichen, the spring breeze blew, and all things revived. Because of the cold winter, many plants were missing, and they also grew one after another during this period. The temperature gradually rose, and there was no biting cold like the cold winter, and it was impossible to walk without the stove. Thousands of villagers in Qingshi village also began to walk out of their warm houses, holding various farm tools, and began to work in the fields, orchards, and vegetable fields for the new year. In mid-February, at the edge of the 6-acre spiritual field on the top of Qingshi Mountain, Ling Pengyun showed some worry in his expression, staring intently at a ground-covering earthworm lying on the surface of the spiritual soil of 1 acre of yellow jade spiritual rice, with his eyes closed and not moving. However, after a while, a strong spiritual power fluctuation suddenly erupted from the body of the ground-covering earthworm, and the spiritual energy in Qingshi Mountain was also attracted by it and rushed into its young body frantically. As the spiritual energy continued to be injected into the body of the ground-covering earthworm, its young body was also expanded by the spiritual energy. Many cracks have appeared on the surface of its wrinkled skin, and it really feels like the body will be broken by the numerous spiritual energy in the body in the next second. After about half a cup of tea, just when its body was about to reach its limit, a sound of breaking sounded in the body of the ground-covering earthworm. Then, the huge amount of spiritual power that had expanded the body of the earthworm was quickly controlled by the earthworm, and then washed and moistened its body. As the spiritual power washed, its breath also increased. However, in an instant, it officially entered the realm of key training, and it opened its eyes and woke up. When it opened its eyes, it saw its master beside it, and the joy in its expression was clearly visible. It kept twisting its body and crawling towards Ling Pengyun, using the master recognition restriction to convey its endless joy of breakthrough to Ling Pengyun. Fortunately, there was no danger. Ling Pengyun, who had been staying at the edge of the spiritual field, saw that the earthworm in front of him had successfully broken through to the key training realm and was crawling towards him. He took a long breath, his expression suddenly turned into a relaxed expression, and said with a smile, "The earthworm that has broken through now is the earthworm that had reached the bottleneck of the key training realm 3 months ago. The earthworm is different from other monsters. Although it is a key training monster, its body is very fragile, which makes it extremely difficult for the earthworm clan to break through. Often, among 2 earthworms that break through the key training realm, it is considered good if one earthworm can break through safely and successfully to the key training realm. It is precisely for this reason that although the Ling family has nearly 100 earthworms, there are not many earthworms in the key training realm." Ling Pengyun lowered his head and looked at the earthworm in the key training realm that crawled from the spiritual field to his feet. He had an idea. This earthworm can break through the key training realm. It is considered to have good qualifications among the earthworm clan. If it had the help of the yin and yang Taichu Qi that I absorbed for 9 years and condensed, it might have a chance to enter the late stage of key training. The late stage of key training can be said to be a major difficulty for the earthworm clan. The number of earthworms in the late stage of key training owned by the Ling family does not exceed 10 fingers. As soon as this idea came out, Ling Pengyun began to feel troubled. According to his earlier arrangement, the second breath of yin-yang primordial qi he condensed was for his future attacking spirit beasts. However, he did not have any attacking spirit beasts at the moment, and the earthworm in front of him happened to have good qualifications, so he had this idea. Chapter 53 Weird Bee. After thinking for a while, considering that this earthworm is of great help to the spirit plant husband, and now he has no attacking spirit beast, it is difficult to find an attacking spirit beast that suits his heart. Instead of keeping this breath of yin and yang Taichu Qi, it is better to use it. 9 years is just a few more retreats for a cultivator. With a plan, Ling Pengyun no longer hesitated and passed the yin and yang Taichu Qi that he had just condensed not long ago into the body of the earthworm that had just entered the key training realm at his feet. As soon as this yin and yang Taichu Qi entered the body of the earthworm in the early stage of key training, its eyes turned white and it fainted. However, during this coma, its body, including its intangible understanding and spiritual consciousness, has undergone a huge improvement under the improvement of yin and yang Taichu Qi. When it woke up, it was the next day at noon. It also discovered that not only did its intelligence increase greatly, but even if it did not swallow the spiritual soil and absorb the spiritual energy in the spiritual soil, the spiritual energy around it was also flowing into its body at all times, improving its cultivation. This change made the key training realm earthworm very happy. With its intelligence greatly increased, it expected that it might have a bright future. A small vision also emerged in its heart. I want to become the king of the clan. Time passed, and at the time of the spring equinox, the pear trees, peach trees, orange trees and other fruit trees in the 1,000-acre orchard specially opened by the villagers of Qingshi village last year also bloomed with fruit flowers of different colors and faint fragrance. 10 villagers who were appointed by Ling Dong, The village chief, to take care of the 1,000 acres of fruit trees in the orchard, were now carrying 2 buckets of pig manure from the pig pen built with funds raised by the village, and watering the fruit trees in the orchard to increase the fertility of the soil around these fruit trees and make the fruit trees bear more fruits. As the 10 of them gradually went deeper into the orchard and watered the fruit trees, they heard a series of faint buzzing sounds. Among the 10 people, Ling Yang, who was older, frowned when he heard the strange buzzing sound and warned the other 9 people who were busy with farming nearby. Now is the time when the fruit trees are in bloom. Listening to this strange sound, it sounds a bit like the sound of bees flapping their wings. I guess they are attracted by the sweet pollen of the flowering fruit trees. Be careful. It's not pleasant to be stung by bees. If you see bees, stay away. Don't interfere with the pollination of these bees. This is related to the harvest of fruit trees in this orchard this year. The other 9 people were also good at farming. Naturally, they knew the importance and harm of bees to the orchard. Bees collecting pollen will not actively attack people, even if they get close. But if you disturb the bees collecting pollen, 9 out of 10 will be attacked by the bees desperately. The stinger on the bee's tail is a full-strength attack by the bee at the cost of its life. If stung, the wound will swell immediately and cause pain. Even with herbal treatment, it will take several days to heal. Although the 10 people working in the orchard were extremely careful and avoided the bees that landed on the delicate buds of the fruit trees to collect pollen, a few of them accidentally bumped into the branches of some fruit trees, interfering with the bees collecting pollen from the flowers of the fruit trees. These bees called on the surrounding bee colonies to attack the 10 people together. However, the attack method of this group of bees was different from that of ordinary bees. Ordinary bees usually pierce the human body with their poisonous stingers to attack. But this group of bees bite with their sharp teeth in their mouths. Ling Yang, who is well informed and somewhat experienced, looked at the bee on his arm that was biting him with its mouth and was immediately confused. Normally, normal bees attack foreign enemies with a poisonous stinger on their tails, and ordinary bees do not have small teeth in their mouths. After thinking for a while, his expression changed drastically. He thought of something and shouted in fear. "Run quickly, these bees have entered the acquired realm. The stings on their backs are extremely poisonous, no different from venomous snakes. If they don't care about their lives and pierce our bodies with their poisonous stings, we will have to stay in bed for at least several months." When everyone heard this, they had also heard about the acquired realm bees. After seeing the appearance of the dozens of bees attacking them, they immediately confirmed it and followed Ling Yang, rushing out of the orchard frantically. Halfway through the escape, the more than 10 acquired realm bees, which were the size of ordinary bees, also stopped chasing. But among Ling Yang's 10 people, there were still 2 unlucky people who angered 2 acquired realm bees and were pierced by their stings. In just 3 breaths, they fainted due to the bee venom. Fortunately, this orchard is not far from the village. After an old doctor in the village used special herbal medicine to treat them, the bee venom in the bodies of the 2 people was gradually discharged. However, the 2 people did not wake up and were still in a coma. This matter soon reached the ears of the village chief Lingdong. When Lingdong heard about it, he immediately called the hundreds of Lingxiao guards who were out on patrol, wearing heavy armor, and entered the orchard with torches that emitted a lot of thick smoke. At first, hundreds of Lingxiao guards, with the help of the special and drug-induced torches that emitted thick smoke, did confuse many of the postnatal realm bees in the orchard, and they had no power to resist. But the good times didn't last long. 10 strange bees that were the size of hornets but still looked like bees rushed out from the depths of the orchard. They seemed to have iron teeth in their mouths, and even the heavy armor made of fine iron was easily bitten by them. They rushed into the heavy armor and used their sharp mouth parts to bite the flesh of the Lingxiao guards. Even though these Lingxiao guards were warriors with deep internal strength, they could hardly hurt these strange bees. This strange thing shocked the leader Lingdong. The Lingxiao guards under his command were at least powerful warriors at the postnatal perfection realm. With such strength, they were unable to do anything to this strange bee that was only the size of a wasp. It was very strange. A guess appeared in his mind. Bees in the key training stage. When this thought came out, Lingdong looked panicked and shouted, "Retreat! Retreat quickly! It's a poisonous bee that is far beyond the innate realm." As soon as these words came out, hundreds of Lingxiao guards were immediately shocked. As warriors, they knew how strong the beasts that were far beyond the innate realm were. They hurriedly followed Lingdong to flee. Fortunately, The 10 key training bees did not desperately use their extremely poisonous stingers, but only used their sharp teeth to bite, and the hundreds of Lingxiao guards only suffered some flesh wounds. The 10 strange bees did not chase them for long. After the hundreds of Lingxiao guards left the orchard, they returned to the depths of the orchard. Lingdong, who fled the orchard with hundreds of Lingxiao guards, left the village immediately, ignoring the doubts of the onlookers, and hurried to the foot of Qingshi Mountain. He shouted and asked for help from Ling Pengyun, who was sitting in Qingshi Mountain. Lingdong from Qingshi village, I want to see the Immortal Master, and I hope the Immortal Master can help me. Chapter 54 Fruit Bee. Ling Pengyun, who was in the mountains comprehending the sword art of the earthly evil, frowned when he heard Lingdong's cry for help from outside the mountain. The last time Lingdong asked for help was about a blue-scaled giant python. At that time, many people in Qingshi village died. Ling Pengyun didn't want to see such a tragic situation again. He hurriedly stopped comprehending the sword art, quickly stood up, blessed a light body technique, lightly touched the ground, and slowly floated down the mountain. What happened? Ling Pengyun asked. Lingdong, who was sweating profusely, heard the question from the immortal Ling Pengyun and made a long story short, roughly describing the strange bee attack in the 1,000-acre orchard in Qingshi village. After listening to Lingdong's story, Ling Pengyun became interested and guessed secretly. It still looks like a bee, but it's the size of a wasp, and its sharp teeth can tear through heavy armor, and it made hundreds of Lingxiao guards in the acquired and innate realms flee. This description does look a bit like bees that have entered the key training realm, but I don't know what species they are. But since these bees didn't attack the Lingxiao guards too hard, they should be bees with a gentle temperament, not poisonous bees. Ling Pengyun asked about the location of Lingdong's orchard, and then quickly ran towards the orchard. Bees that have entered the key training realm cannot be underestimated. Even if they have a gentle temperament, they are still an uncontrollable factor for mortals. The orchard is not far from Qingshi Mountain, only about a mile away. In just a few dozen breaths, Ling Pengyun entered the orchard. In order to avoid alerting the bees, he tried his best to contain his breath to avoid being detected in advance. Then, he followed the location of the key training bees that Lingdong had told him before, and sneaked into the depths of the orchard. As he gradually went deeper into the orchard, he did see a lot of bees in the acquired and innate realms. Due to the effect of the breath-retaining technique, these acquired and innate bees naturally could not detect Ling Pengyun's arrival. Ling Pengyun did not kill them, but chose to take a detour and head straight to the depths of the orchard. With a blessing of the light body technique, Ling Pengyun entered the deepest part of the 1,000-acre orchard in about 100 breaths. Buzz buzz buzz. In the zoomy, Ling Pengyun heard the sound of a large number of bees flapping their wings. He immediately stopped, hid behind an orange tree, and looked towards the place where the sound came from. At a glance, he saw a beehive as big as his face hanging on the branch of a pear tree, with pear blossoms in full bloom, and a height of 10 feet away. And the buzz 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 sound was made by hundreds of bees entering and exiting the nest and flapping their wings. In addition to these, Ling Pengyun also saw that among these hundreds of bees, there were 5 huge bees that were like ordinary guards and only hovered around the beehive. Looking at the appearance of the 5 giant bees that looked like guards and sensing their aura, Ling Pengyun's eyes suddenly lit up. Sure enough, they are bees in the key training realm. Lingdong was not wrong. These 5 giant bees all have a flower pattern on their heads, and they are mainly yellow-brown like ordinary bees. Their heads and chests are almost as wide, their waists are wider than their chests, their abdomens are slender, and they have stingers at the end of their abdomens. This appearance and characteristics are the same as the appearance description of the fruit flower bees recorded in the 10,000 Monsters book of the family Gongfa Pavilion. The smell of honey with fruity aroma coming out of this beehive is also the same as the description of fruit flower honey in the 10,000 Monsters book. From this point of view, the 5 bees in the key training realm are probably fruit flower bees that have advanced from ordinary fruit bees. If I can seize this group of fruit flower bees, they will definitely be a great help in my cultivation resources. Fruit flower bees are a relatively special kind of monster. They only like the pollen of fruit tree flowers and never absorb pollen from ordinary flowers. This also makes the fruit honey brewed by the fruit flower bees of the first grade contain the aroma of fruit, and the effect is comparable to the effect of the spiritual fruit of the same grade. It is a rare spiritual object in this world of immortal cultivation. This surprise was too sudden. It took Ling Pengyun a long time to calm down. The 5 fruit flower bees guarding the surrounding of the beehive were only in the early stage of key training, so Ling Pengyun was naturally not afraid. However, before, he heard from Ling Dong that there were as many as 10 fruit flower bees attacking hundreds of Lingxiao guards. Ling Pengyun mobilized his spiritual sense and scanned the beehive. The situation in the beehive was clear at a glance. In addition to the 5 fruit flower bees guarding, there was only 1 fruit flower bee in the second level of key training in the beehive that was reproducing and giving birth to bee eggs. The remaining hundreds of bees were ordinary bees in the ordinary acquired and innate realms. In a bee colony, only the queen bee can lay eggs. The fruit flower bee that is laying eggs at the other end of the hive should be the queen bee of this group of fruit bees. Ling Pengyun guessed secretly. As for the other fruit flower bees in the key training realm mentioned by Ling Dong, according to Ling Pengyun's guess, they should be in this huge orchard, collecting pollen from the flowers blooming on the trunks of various fruit trees. The information was clear. There were only 6 fruit flower bees in the initial stage of key training, so Ling Pengyun naturally had no worries. He first cast the shock and deterrence technique on himself, and then rushed to the beehive on the pear tree trunk dozens of feet away. The ordinary bees in the Xiantian realm that he met along the way were affected by the shock and deterrence technique and stayed away, not daring to approach Ling Pengyun. Only the 5 early key training fruit flower bees guarding the beehive had the strength to fight, but fruit flower bees were not good at attacking. After being hit by Ling Pengyun's 5 first-level low-grade spells wind binding, they could no longer move at all and fell to the ground. They could only watch as Ling Pengyun, the big villain, kept approaching the beehive they had worked so hard to build. The unusual movement outside startled the queen bee in the beehive, but the queen bee did not change the situation and follow the footsteps of the previous 5 fruit flower bees. She was trapped by a wind binding and could not flap her wings and fell to the ground. Ling Pengyun looked at the fruit flower queen bee who fell to the ground and was trapped by the wind binding. After hesitating for a moment, he waved his hand and shot a spiritual light on his index finger, squeezed out a drop of blood, and used the blood as the source to cast the master recognition restriction. As soon as the blood-red seal was formed, it was sent into the queen bee's body by Ling Pengyun. Under the powerful power of Ling Pengyun, the fruit flower queen bee did not resist a master recognition restriction for long. Seeing that the master recognition restriction was completed, Ling Pengyun also removed the wind restraint that trapped the fruit flower queen bee. Without this restraint, the fruit flower queen bee immediately opened her mouth in anger and bit Ling Pengyun. But in the middle of the attack, Ling Pengyun's mind moved slightly, triggering the master recognition restriction in the body of the 100 Flowers queen bee. The 100 Flowers queen bee, who was biting Ling Pengyun, suddenly showed an extremely painful expression, swaying left and right and falling to the ground. Now that you have the master recognition restriction I set up in your body, you only have 2 choices. Submit, or die. With the help of the master recognition restriction, the 100 Flowers queen bee heard the meaning of Ling Pengyun's words clearly. The queen bee of 100 Flowers was probably used to being the king of all bees, so she did not give in, but fought hard. After being easily defeated by Ling Pengyun several times, she finally calmed down and sent Ling Pengyun the idea of surrendering. Seeing this, Ling Pengyun was overjoyed. For a group of monsters like a bee colony, as long as the queen bee surrenders, it is equivalent to controlling the entire bee colony. In order to count how many ordinary fruit bees and fruit bees that have entered the key training realm there are in this fruit flower bee colony, Ling Pengyun gestured to the queen bee. Tell those 5 fruit flower bees not to attack me. In addition, summon all the bees and fruit flower bees in your colony outside the hive. After saying this, he removed the wind restraints on the 5 fruit flower bees that fell to the ground, allowing them to regain their freedom. Under the control of the queen bee, the 5 fruit flower bees did not attack Ling Pengyun, but their hostility towards Ling Pengyun did not diminish. They stood in front of the queen bee to protect her safety. Ling Pengyun didn't care about this kind of thing. They were just toys in his hands, so how could their fate change? Thanks to Pfus, Jixiang IE 6699, Angel Walker, Book Friend 160,800,221,958,372, Book Friend 2019051712152016, 1 Kafeng, Book Friend 150,113,231,154,057, Wang Zhou, Kung 2, Stealing Mouse. Monthly ticket. Thank you all. Please read it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, The Spiritual Eyes of the Spiritual Orange Tree. Under the unknown method of the queen bee, the entire fruit bee colony gathered here in just half a cup of tea. There were more than 300 ordinary fruit bees in the colony, 19 fruit flower worker bees at the first level of key training, and a fruit flower queen bee at the second level of key training. This number of fruit flower worker bees was completely beyond Ling Pengyun's expectations, and he also showed a very bright smile on his face. According to the records in the Book of 10,000 Monsters, a fruit flower bee can collect pollen from fruit trees and brew about 2 kilograms of fruit flower honey in a year. 1 kilogram is kept for eating when the fruit trees bloom, and the other kilogram is stored. 19 fruit flower bees can store 19 kilograms of first-level low-quality fruit flower honey in a year, which is enough to get 19 first-level low-quality spiritual fruits for free every year. This kind of business, I made a lot of money for nothing. Fruit flower bees break through the key training realm, and their lifespan is far longer than that of ordinary bees, at least several decades. The queen bee in the bee colony does not collect honey, but reproduces and lays eggs. The fruit bees did not store all the nectar they collected. They would eat it themselves to improve their cultivation. After a while of joy, Ling Pengyun began to wonder about the origin of this group of fruit bees. In the past, there were no such number of bee colonies in this orchard, not to mention that there were no flowers or spiritual energy from the spiritual fruit trees here, so it was impossible to breed a group of 20 fruit bees in the key training realm. After asking the queen bee, who was somewhat sane, he learned that winter had just passed and spring was coming, and all things were waking up. Within hundreds of miles, the flowers of nearly 10,000 fruit trees covering an area of 1,000 acres here had the strongest fragrance, so they moved here from a barren mountain forest more than 10 miles away. The queen bee also explained why there were so many fruit bees in the key training realm in this bee colony. According to it, it suddenly fell into coma after absorbing the pollen of the flowers of a magical orange tree, and then advanced. When talking about this, the queen bee was also very helpless. The magical orange tree was good, and it was also of great help to its cultivation. However, there were only dozens of wild fruit trees in the wild mountain where the magical orange tree was located. Because no one took care of it, the flowers that bloomed every year were very few, and naturally there was less pollen. As the pollen in the flowers that bloomed this year by the magical orange tree was absorbed by the bee colony, the fruit bee colony that feeds on pollen can only leave that place if it wants to expand its colony. Hearing this news, Ling Pengyun's expression changed slightly, revealing doubts. Even if the orange tree is a spiritual orange tree, it only blooms so many flowers. How can it support 20 fruit bees to enter the key training realm in a short period of time and be promoted to fruit flower bees? Could it be a spiritual eye? Or a spiritual vein? Thinking of this, Ling Pengyun's eyes suddenly became hot. He told the queen bee to tell the bee colony not to attack the human race who entered the orchard, and then took the queen bee out of the orchard. Tell the villagers of Qingshi village that the bee colonies in the orchard have been tamed by him, and they should not step into the depths of the orchard. Then, under the guidance of the queen bee crawling on his shoulder, he controlled the green leaf to fly out of Qingshi village quickly. The green leaf was extremely fast, and its reputation of traveling 1,500 miles a day was not earned for nothing. After Ling Pengyun practiced his exquisite flying skills for many days, in just half an hour, Ling Pengyun followed the guidance of the queen bee and entered a barren mountain and came to a relatively spacious place, above a 2-meter-high orange tree with lush branches and leaves. There was also a beehive on the branch of the orange tree, but there were no bees in it. There were also many wild animal bones on the ground next to the tree. That beehive should be the nest abandoned by the fruit flower bee colony. As for those wild animal bones, they should be the work of the wild animals or monsters that occupied this tree after the fruit flower bee colony left this place. Ling Pengyun secretly guessed and controlled the green leaf under his feet to fall to the ground. As soon as he entered the ground and had not yet approached the orange tree for 3 meters, Ling Pengyun felt that the orange tree contained a pure spiritual power. It is indeed a spiritual orange tree that has entered the rank. A plant that contains such a large amount of spiritual power must have entered the rank. Where spiritual plants grow in the wild, There must be a place where spiritual energy erupts. This saying is widely circulated in the world of immortal cultivation. Without spiritual energy, this spiritual orange tree would have no support to enter the rank. Ling Pengyun could not wait to mobilize his spiritual sense and probe into the ground under the spiritual orange tree. When his spiritual sense penetrated only 3 inches into the ground, Ling Pengyun noticed that there was a place where spiritual power gathered into a spiritual eye. Sure enough, there is a spiritual eye. The spiritual eye, like the spiritual vein, can produce spiritual energy, and the spiritual eye is also the prototype of the spiritual vein. If this spiritual eye is allowed to accumulate spiritual energy for hundreds or thousands of years, it will surely enter the realm of the spiritual vein. When the accumulated spiritual energy is enough, it can gradually upgrade its rank. The longer the time, the spiritual vein will accumulate spiritual energy on its own, and the higher the rank it will be promoted. This spiritual tangerine tree and the spiritual eye have very weak foundations, and they should have been born recently. Judging from the situation, this spiritual tangerine tree should have been born relying on the spiritual eye, gathering spiritual energy, and by chance, it has entered the first level. I think the group of fruit flower bees are also lucky. Before this tangerine tree became spiritual, they built a nest here and received the spiritual energy when the spiritual eye was born. Otherwise, it would be difficult to give birth to 20 fruit flower bees in a short period of time relying solely on the pollen of this first-level low-grade spiritual tangerine tree. This spiritual tangerine tree and the spiritual eye underground were born at the same time, as if they were one. It is also wrong to say that this spiritual tangerine tree is a part of this spiritual eye. In this case, it is impossible to transplant this spiritual tangerine tree into the clan. But it doesn't matter. This is the land of our Ling family, and there is also a spiritual eye. The clan will definitely rely on this spiritual eye to set up a spiritual formation, and with the help of the spiritual power in the spiritual stone, the grade of this spiritual eye will be directly upgraded to the first grade lower realm. Then set up a formation here, send clan members to garrison, and build a village. Given the qualifications of this spiritual orange tree as a spiritual vein tree, I'm afraid it has a bright future. Transplanting will also hurt the qualifications of the orange tree. It is best to inform the family and set up a formation to guard it here. Whether it is the birth of a spiritual eye or the advancement of a spiritual vein, there will be spiritual energy feedback. This spiritual energy feedback is extremely docile, just like the spiritual power feedback of the spiritual plants that are the same as the spiritual plants. The spiritual vein tree is a spiritual tree that was born at the same time as the spiritual eye. This kind of spiritual tree is generally very talented. As long as the spiritual vein is promoted to a certain grade, the spiritual vein tree can quickly follow up, which is equivalent to unlimited qualifications. However, the spiritual vein promotion is difficult and time-consuming. This spiritual vein tree often turns this advantage into disadvantage because of the slow spiritual vein promotion. As for handing over the spiritual eye of this place, including the spiritual orange tree and other fruit trees to the family, it is also the result of Ling Pengyun's careful consideration. He usually has to stay in Qingshi Mountain, and Ling Pengyun is extremely busy and has no time to take care of this place. Moreover, even if this spiritual orange tree is a spiritual vein tree, its current grade is still the first grade low grade, which is not of much use to Ling Pengyun. Instead of taking it away against his conscience, it is better to hand it over to the family and maximize the effectiveness of these two things. Of course, after handing it over to the family, Ling Pengyun will also receive a considerable reward. Chapter 56 Fruit Nectar. Just when Ling Pengyun wanted to leave, a tiger roar came from a distance. Hearing this, Ling Pengyun subconsciously slapped the storage bag on his waist and summoned a black iron sword and black iron shield from it. The black iron shield was tightly held in his hand, and the black iron sword was suspended around his body. After preparing these, Ling Pengyun looked in the direction of the tiger roar. 100 feet away, a tiger on a flat ground was looking at Ling Pengyun fiercely, but he dared not come forward, and there was even some fear in his expression. Ling Pengyun suddenly noticed the tiger's expression, and used the vision of the tiger to observe the tiger 100 feet away. Only then did he realize that the tiger did not contain any spiritual energy. It turned out to be just a little tiger in the realm of innate perfection. The solemnity on Ling Pengyun's face suddenly dissipated, and he chuckled to himself. With a slight thought, the black iron sword turned into a black light and shadow, and hit the tiger directly. But in an instant, the black iron sword pierced through the tiger's body and killed it. Ling Pengyun walked lightly beside the tiger's corpse. Based on the many beast bones around the spiritual orange tree, he guessed, this tiger should be the beast that occupied the spiritual orange tree. After the fruit flower bee colony left, he waved his hand and put the tiger's corpse into the storage bag, intending to keep it for a snack, and then stepped on the green leaves and flew away. After leaving the barren mountains and wild ridges, Ling Pengyun immediately entered the Qingshi Lake Zhuanshu mine vein and found Ling Ruxin, who was stationed in the mine vein. He informed Ling Ruxin, who was stationed in the Zhuanshu iron mine vein, of the information about the spiritual eye and the spiritual orange tree. Due to the importance of the spiritual eye and the spiritual orange tree, after hearing the news, Ling Ruxin immediately rode a fairy crane in the late stage of key training and returned to the family to find a formation master to go to the spiritual vein and set up a formation to protect it. After watching Ling Ruxin leave, Ling Pengyun took the queen bee back to the 1,000-acre orchard where the fruit flower bee colony was. In order to verify the matter of the spiritual orange tree, he forgot to do something very important. Standing in front of the beehive, smelling the sweet smell of honey with fruity aroma wafting out of the beehive, Ling Pengyun couldn't help swallowing his saliva, and his eyes kept flashing. Although the fruit flower honey is said to be as effective as a spiritual fruit of the same level, this honey with fruity aroma has another special feature, which is delicious. Ling Pengyun pinched the fruit flower queen bee lying on his shoulder in his hand and threatened, "In the future, leave 19 kilograms of fruit flower honey in your beehive every year for me." Under the effect of the master recognition restriction, this fruit flower queen bee knew Ling Pengyun's meaning very well. Although it was unwilling, it had no choice. It knew that if it refused, it would be crushed to death by the cruel master in front of it the next moment. In desperation, it had to convey the idea of agreeing to Ling Pengyun. Ling Pengyun noticed the resentment flashing in the queen bee's eyes, smiled slightly, and took the approach of giving a slap and a sweet date, and said, "Don't worry, I won't treat you unfairly. In the future, I will double the number of fruit trees in this orchard every year. I will definitely not let your hive reduce the fruit nectar because you follow me." Hearing this, the fruit flower queen bee in Ling Pengyun's hand was very happy and immediately had no opinion on Ling Pengyun. The more fruit trees there are, the more fruit pollen can be collected. Correspondingly, these fruit pollens can be purified by the fruit flower bees in the key training realm to condense more first-level low-grade fruit flower nectar. Although the first-level low-grade fruit flower nectar is an entry-level spiritual object, the raw material for condensation only needs the pollen of ordinary fruit tree flowers. Fruit flower honey is also a cultivation resource for the entry-level fruit flower bees. After swallowing, it can improve their cultivation. At the same time, this fruit flower honey can also be used as a source of spiritual energy to guide the other ordinary fruit bees in the group to enter the realm of key training. It is an important thing to expand the group. Ling Pengyun looked at the joyful look of the fruit flower queen bee in his hand, and his heart was suddenly happy. How could the queen bee know that he was not doing this out of kindness to expand the number of fruit trees in the orchard, but to take more fruit flower honey from the fruit flower beehive in the future to improve his cultivation? Help me to disperse the fruit bees and fruit flower bees in the hive. In order to avoid being attacked by the fruit bees and fruit flower bees in the hive when taking the hive, Ling Pengyun instructed the queen bee in his hand. The queen bee immediately understood, flapped her wings, and made a special wing flashing sound, giving orders to the bee colony. Under the command of the bee colony, the fruit bees and fruit flower bees in the hive flew away from the hive like a tide. When there was no bee left in the hive, Ling Pengyun did not delay any longer. He waved his hand and summoned a black iron sword, directly cutting the hive in half. Then he sent out a spiritual power and lifted up the upper half of the hive. A strong fruity aroma came to his face, which made Ling Pengyun look forward to the deliciousness of this fruit flower honey. There were 2 large and small pieces of golden honey in the hive. The large piece of honey was half the size of a wash basin, but it was just ordinary honey formed by ordinary fruit bees collecting pollen from fruit trees. The small piece of honey was only the size of a rice bowl, and at most half a pound, but it not only contained spiritual energy, but also had a stronger fruity aroma. This was the fruit flower honey condensed by the pollen collected by the fruit flower bees. The amount of fruit flower honey in this hive was small, which Ling Pengyun had expected. After all, this group of fruit flower bees had just moved to this 1,000-acre orchard not long ago. After Ling Pengyun used the black iron sword to cut off half of the fruit flower honey in the beehive, he covered the upper part of the beehive again, And as for the gap between the upper and lower parts of the beehive, he left it to the bee colony to repair it. The ordinary fruit honey in the beehive was useless to him, so it was better to leave it to the fruit flower bee colony to eat. After putting the small piece of fruit flower honey into the storage bag, Ling Pengyun waved a black iron sword, using the tip of the sword to point at the body of the fruit flower queen bee, and warned, "Expand the number of key training fruit flower bees in the bee colony as soon as possible, and don't think about taking the fruit flower honey for yourself to improve your cultivation. If the number of fruit flower bees in the bee colony is less than 30, you will not need to exist if your cultivation breaks through to the third level of key training. The limit of the number of key training early stage spirit bees in the bee colony controlled by the key training early stage queen bee is 30. Increasing the number of key training fruit flower bees can also increase the production of entry-level fruit flower honey." The fruit flower queen bee looked at the black iron sword that was supporting her body, and her body was shocked. She dared not move at all, and quickly conveyed her consent to Ling Pengyun. Ling Pengyun told the queen bee to take good care of the bee colony and not to hurt anyone, then left the orchard and went to Qingshi village. He found Ling Dong and asked Ling Dong to use the large amount of ordinary iron he used when he first started to refine tools to refine some of the remaining farm tools, and sell them in Xiazi town for gold and silver, and buy a large number of fruit tree seedlings to expand the scope of fruit trees. As for the ownership of the fruit trees, it belongs to the entire Qingshi village. The great favor of the immortal, the villagers of Qingshi village will remember it in their hearts. Ling Dong was grateful, and bowed to Ling Pengyun to thank him. "No problem." Ling Pengyun waved his hand, left this word, and then moved his feet lightly, turned into light and disappeared in front of Ling Dong. Chapter 57, Upgrading Spiritual Veins and Developing Spiritual Fields. One day later, two fairy cranes landed on Qingshi Mountain. On one of the fairy cranes was Ling Ruxin, who had returned to the clan mountain the day before to report the news. On the other fairy crane were two people, both women, who looked somewhat similar. Although the older woman had some wrinkles on her face, her regular facial features and a unique temperament all highlighted that she must have been a very beautiful woman when she was young. Although she is old now, she still has a different kind of beauty. This person is Ling Yangxi, the fifth elder of the Ling family and the only formation master of the family. The other woman is good-looking. Like Ling Yangxi, she has a special temperament that transcends ordinary people. As long as you take a look at her, you will definitely find it difficult to rely on her eyes. This person is Ling Pengyun, who ranks 10th in the Peng generation. She is also Ling Yangxi's granddaughter, 13th great-grandfather, 15th and 10th sister. Ling Pengyun greeted the three people who jumped off the two fairy cranes one by one. The fifth elder Ling Yangxi had a look of envy on his face. He summoned 200 spiritual stones from the storage bag on his waist, handed them to Ling Pengyun, and said with a smile, "Pengyun, your opportunity is really enviable. When I heard from Uncle 13 that you found this spiritual eye, I was really surprised. These 200 spiritual stones are the family's reward for your discovery of the spiritual eye and the spiritual orange tree. In addition, you can get 30% of the spiritual oranges obtained from the spiritual orange tree in the future. There are rewards for discovering spiritual veins or spiritual objects. 15th and, my grandson is just luckier." Ling Pengyun put away the spiritual stones handed over, answered modestly, and then changed the subject. He looked at Ling Pengyun beside Ling Yangxi, thought of something, and congratulated him. "10th sister, I heard from my great-great-grandfather who sent the offerings that you entered the rank of formation a few months ago, and now you can arrange a first-level lower-grade formation by yourself. This makes you the second-best formation master in my Ling family. Congratulations. My dear brother, stop making fun of me." Ling Pengyun heard this, and her pretty cheeks blushed slightly. She smiled modestly. "Pengyun, if you praise me a few more times, Pengyun's braids will probably be up to the sky. Okay, let's talk about the past later. Take us to the place where the spiritual eye is first," Ling Yangxi said. "Okay." Ling Pengyun responded. Ling Ruxin saw Ling Pengyun summoning the green walking leaf and greeted him. "Pengyun, get on my fairy crane, the speed can be faster." The four of them rode to fairy cranes respectively and quickly left Qingshi Mountain. Ling Pengyun, who was riding a fairy crane for the first time, felt the speed of the fairy crane and felt a little envious. The speed of the 13th great-grandfather's fairy crane in the late stage of key training is probably 4,000 miles a day. This speed is too far behind my green leaf. It would be great if I could have a fairy crane. When there is a chance in the future, I will definitely ask the 11th great-grandfather for a fairy crane. Although the Ling family's fairy cranes are strong, their number is limited. Only the elders of the family can officially own them. The extra fairy cranes will be temporarily allocated to people like Ling Rufin, who need to travel long distances to deliver offerings. The fairy cranes are fast. In just half an instant stick of time, they followed Ling Pengyun's instructions and came to the spiritual orange tree and the spiritual eye in the wild mountains. The fifth elder Ling Yangxi, who had just jumped off the fairy crane, used his spiritual sense to confirm and found that there was indeed a spiritual eye that had just been conceived under the spiritual orange tree. He said with a smile, "It is indeed a spiritual eye. Pengyun, don't leave in a hurry. This time I brought a spiritual formation and a lot of spiritual stones from the family. After pushing this spiritual eye to the first level lower grade spiritual vein, you will need to open up spiritual fields on this spiritual vein to increase the family's income. Penguin came here this time to stay here." Okay. Ling Pengyun was somewhat confident about the spirit-raising technique for opening up spiritual fields, and nodded in agreement. Seeing Ling Pengyun's response, Ling Yangxi made a look at Ling Ruxin, then sat cross-legged on the ground, mobilized his consciousness to pour into the spiritual eye under the spiritual orange tree, and tried to establish a simple connection with the spiritual eye under the spiritual orange tree with the means of a formation master. Around him, Ling Pengyun and the other two saw this scene and stepped back a little, leaving space for Ling Yangxi, who was about to set up the formation. After about half an instant stick of time, Ling Yangxi suddenly opened his eyes after getting in touch with his spiritual eye. He waved his hand and patted the storage bag on his waist, summoning 9 cocky formation flags and inserting them into the ground around the spiritual orange tree above the spiritual eye. Array up. Ling Yangxi formed seals with his hands and shouted secretly. The 9 formation flags inserted around the spiritual orange tree suddenly flashed with spiritual light. Then, the surrounding ground began to shake, like an earthquake, but the amplitude of the vibration was smaller. Then, Ling Yangxi summoned hundreds of spiritual stones from the storage bag and suspended them above the spiritual orange tree. Absorb the spirit. Ling Yangxi changed the fingering in his hand. The 9 formation flags inserted into the ground trembled slightly, and each of them shot out a yellow spiritual light, which poured into the pile of spiritual stones above the spiritual orange tree. The power of the formation flags extracted the spiritual power in the hundreds of spiritual stones. After a simple purification by the formation flags, the large amount of spiritual power in the hundreds of spiritual stones was slowly injected into the spiritual eye underground under Ling Yangxi's control. Under the effect of the 9 spiritual raising flags, even if the spiritual eye rejects this spiritual power that does not belong to it, it will be suppressed by the 9 flags and forcibly injected into the body. With a continuous injection of spiritual power, the spiritual eye is getting bigger and bigger, and the aura exuded outside is getting stronger and stronger. In just 3 hours, the spiritual eye that was only the size of a spring has now grown into a spiritual vein that is 10 feet long. And the spiritual orange tree on this spiritual vein, because of the spiritual energy feedback from the spiritual eye's promotion to the spiritual vein, more than 10 flower buds on the branches that were about to wither quickly fell off, forming 13 spiritual oranges. In order to upgrade this spiritual vein, the hundreds of spiritual stones were also consumed, leaving only dozens of spiritual stones. The rest of the spiritual stones were drained of spiritual power and turned into decay. Ling Yangxi put away the 9 spiritual raising flags, touched the sweat, and took out a set of Wu Tu Mu formation flags and array plates, and arranged them on this spiritual vein. Then he used the array plate to activate the array flags and test the formation. In an instant, a yellowish-brown light curtain was propped up by 6 Wu Tu Mu formation flags. After finishing all this, Ling Yangxi waved his hand to remove the light curtain, handed the Wu Tu Mu formation plate in his hand to Ling Pengyun, and said hello to him. Pengyun, it's your turn to open up the spiritual field. Ling Pengyun took the formation plate, nodded lightly, walked to the side of the spiritual orange tree, and first used his spiritual sense to explore the spiritual energy level of the first level lower grade spiritual vein that had just been promoted here. This spiritual vein has just been promoted to the first level lower grade, and the spiritual energy is not strong. It seems that only 2 acres of first level lower grade spiritual fields can be opened up. Ling Pengyun secretly estimated according to the spiritual energy level of this spiritual vein. After estimating, Ling Pengyun first took out the spiritual hoe and quickly plowed out a 2-acre field around the spiritual orange tree on the spiritual vein. Then, he closed his eyes and poured his consciousness into the array plate of the Wuduhum array in his hand. With a connection between the array plate and the spiritual vein, he mobilized the spiritual energy in the underground spiritual vein and injected it into one of the acres of wasteland. At the same time, he pinched his hands and performed the spiritual cultivation technique on the acre of wasteland. With the effect of the spiritual cultivation technique, he drew the spiritual energy injected into the acre of wasteland by the spiritual vein to refine the mortal soil and turn it into spiritual soil. The process of refining the mortal soil was very long. It took half a day to refine 1 acre of mortal soil into spiritual soil. After placing a ban on the array plate, locking part of the spiritual energy of the spiritual vein in the acre of spiritual field, he began to busy himself with refining another acre of wasteland. At noon the next day, the task of opening up the spiritual field was completed. The spiritual cultivation technique is also a secret technique of the spiritual plant, which can only be understood and performed by spiritual plant husbands. After developing 2 mu of spiritual fields, Ling Pengyun was a little tired and his spiritual power was almost exhausted. He wiped the sweat off his face and told Ling Yangxi that the spiritual fields had been developed. Seeing Ling Pengyun's pale face and a look of excessive spiritual power consumption, Ling Yangxi spoke. Pengyun, you have worked hard. This spiritual vein was discovered by you, so you can name it. What do you think about the name? Ling Pengyun thought about it carefully and thought that he found this place based on the fruit flower bee queen, so he smiled and said, to be honest with you, Aunt 15, this spiritual vein was found by me based on a fruit flower bee. In my opinion, this barren ridge should be named Fruit Bee Ridge. What do you think? As a member of the family, Ling Pengyun never thought that the matter of the fruit flower bee could be concealed. Even if he didn't say it today, the clan members would know it in the future. Fruit Bee Ridge, this name is good. When I return to the clan, I will use this name to ask the General Affairs Hall to add this place to the distribution map of spiritual veins in Anyang County of my Ling family. Ling Yangxi's expression changed slightly when he heard about the fruit flower bee, but he deliberately did not ask, pretending not to hear, and smiled and agreed with Ling Pengyun's proposal. The name is chosen. I see that you have consumed too much energy in developing the spiritual field. This spiritual tangerine tree was also discovered by you. The first batch of 13 spiritual tangerines on the spiritual tangerine tree due to the spiritual energy feedback will be taken by you. After that, you and your third uncle will return to the place where you are stationed first, so as to avoid accidents in the Qingshi Mountain and Qingshi Lake mines. I will stay here for a few more days to accompany Pengyun. Please take good care of Pengyun in the future. Ling Pengyun naturally knew the meaning of Ling Yangxi's concession of the 13 spiritual tangerines on the spiritual tangerine tree. This was the same idea as when Ling Ruguo asked him to take care of Lingdong. He intended to let him and Ling Ruxin rescue Ling Pengyun as soon as possible when he was in danger. Under normal circumstances, the spiritual oranges on this spiritual orange tree are now produced because they rely on the family spiritual stone and the spiritual energy when they are promoted to the spiritual vein. Ling Pengyun only takes 30%, and the other 70% belongs to the family. Ling Pengyun did not refuse this and said with a smile, "Don't worry, 15th aunt, if Pengyun is in danger, I and the 13th great-grandfather will definitely support Pengyun at the first time. Moreover, Pengyun is a first-level low-grade formation master. If he encounters danger, he will open the earth-condensing curtain formation here. I am afraid that even if 3 mid-stage key training masters attack this place at the same time, it will be difficult to break through this place within half a day." Ling Ruxin didn't like to talk, but just agreed. Not bad. Hearing this, Ling Yangxi felt much more at ease. She liked Ling Pengyun, her precious granddaughter who had good formations and cultivation talents, very much. If it weren't for the purpose of training Ling Pengyun's character, she would really be reluctant to let Ling Pengyun go out alone. "Thank you." Ling Yangxi thanked. "No problem," Ling Ruxin said, and then called Ling Pengyun to ride on his fairy crane and fly away. After Ling Yangxi saw the two of them off, he began to explain in detail what Ling Pengyun, who was out of the mountains for the first time, should be wary of in the outside world. By the way, he led Ling Pengyun to clear out the wild beasts in the Fruit Bee Ridge that stretched for several miles. Chapter 58, Key Training Level 6. On the other side, Ling Pengyun, who was ridden by Ling Ruxin on the fairy crane back to Qingshi Mountain, Immediately cast a wave of spiritual rain on the 6 acres of spiritual fields on the top of the mountain after watching Ling Ruxin leave, to prevent the spiritual plants in the 6 acres of spiritual fields from showing signs of water shortage due to a day without rain. He cast the cloud rain spell 3 times in a row, and the spiritual rain fell to irrigate the 6 acres of spiritual fields, consuming the last 10% of spiritual power left in Ling Pengyun's dantian. At this moment, Ling Pengyun was actually not much different from ordinary people, except that his body was stronger than ordinary people. It was a taboo for cultivators to have no spiritual power left. As a cultivator, Ling Pengyun was naturally very cautious about this. After casting spiritual rain on the 6 acres of spiritual fields, he immediately returned to the cave halfway up the mountain, sat cross-legged on the futon, took out the small piece of fruit nectar he had just obtained from the storage bag on his waist, and took a small bite. The moment the fruit nectar entered his mouth, the taste of several fruits and the extreme sweetness of honey quickly spread to his taste buds. The taste of this fruit flower honey is well deserved. It tastes good. The spiritual energy contained in it is also quite good. It can be regarded as a good resource for cultivation. After tasting the taste of the fruit flower honey, Ling Pengyun did not linger too much. He swallowed a small piece of fruit flower honey in his hand, which weighed about half a pound, directly into his stomach in 3 or 5 mouthfuls. Then, he immediately closed his eyes, practiced the exercises, and refined the fruit flower honey in his stomach. This fruit flower honey is like spiritual fruit. The spiritual energy in it is extremely pure and there are not many impurities at all. It only needs to be slightly refined and can be directly sent to the dantian to improve cultivation. With the help of fruit flower honey, his dantian was filled again in just a few hours. After the spiritual power was restored, Ling Pengyun stopped practicing the exercises and began to comprehend the earthly sword tactics, spells and other trivial matters according to his daily routine. Now it is the time of Wei, which is not the time for cultivation. The days that followed were ordinary. Except for Ling Pengyun going down the mountain to the Qingshi orchard to get a portion of fruit flower honey every month, he has been practicing hard. Although it was a hard training, Ling Pengyun was also happy with it and had some small gains every day. Occasionally, Ling Pengyun, who was stationed in Fruitby Ridge, would come to Qingshi Mountain to ask Ling Pengyun for some tips on taking care of spiritual plants. Ling Pengyun also taught this sister of the same age without hiding anything. In early June, during the grain-in-year period, in a cave halfway up Qingshi Mountain, Ling Pengyun sat cross-legged on a cushion with his eyes closed and his brows furrowed. From the outside, Ling Pengyun was just sitting in meditation. But in his body, a war to break through the bottleneck of the 6th level of key training was set off. About half an hour later, Ling Pengyun's dantian made a strange sound click. Then, the bottleneck that trapped him was shattered by the torrent of spiritual power. Under the control of Ling Pengyun's consciousness, the huge spiritual power began to expand his dantian in the abdomen and nourish the meridians. It had been like this for nearly half a day, and Ling Pengyun finally opened his eyes and a smile appeared on his face. The 6th level of key training, so this is what it feels like. Although my spiritual awareness and spiritual power have only increased by 30% due to this breakthrough, it is of great significance to me. With such a strong spiritual awareness, I will have more advantages in refining equipment and fighting. When I use the cloud rain technique to water the spiritual rain, I can also let the falling spiritual rain cover more spiritual fields to reduce the time consumed by raining. More importantly, my spiritual awareness now far exceeds the minimum requirement for mastering the earthly evil sword art. Now I just need to comprehend the sword art and find my 13th great-grandfather to ask for the method of condensing the earthly evil sword formation, and then I can master a powerful method of fighting across levels. When Ling Pengyun was at the 5th level of key training, his spiritual awareness could cover as much as 65 meters around him. Now it has increased by 30%, enough to cover as much as 85 meters around him. This strength of spiritual awareness is comparable to that of ordinary cultivators at the 8th level of key training. And spiritual awareness is also crucial for refining equipment. It can control the refining process in detail and reduce the possibility of mistakes. The minimum requirement of the earthly evil sword formation is that the spiritual consciousness covers an area of 70 feet around, which is equivalent to the spiritual consciousness strength of a 7th level key training cultivator. Now Ling Pengyun's spiritual consciousness strength can be said to have far exceeded this requirement. Ling Pengyun was very happy about the improvement of his cultivation. After the joy, Ling Pengyun's eyes flashed with a brilliant light, and he muttered to himself, I am getting closer and closer to the perfection of Qi training. The thorn vines are estimated to have the ability to impact the middle stage of Qi training in just 1 month. But I still have to suppress it. I will consolidate my current superficial cultivation and let the thorn vines break through. It will be safer to use its spiritual power to feed back and impact the 7th level of Qi training. After thinking about it, Ling Pengyun closed his eyes again, mobilized his spiritual power, and nourished the thorn vines attached to his left chest to improve his cultivation. Spiritual plants have no intelligence, nor do they have the inherited skills in their blood like monsters. They are like a piece of stone, and can only absorb nutrients and spiritual energy through their roots. Therefore, the progress of spiritual plants has always been one of the slowest representatives in the world of immortal cultivation. For example, if Ling Pengyun did not nourish this thorny vine with spiritual power every day, it would not be about to break through the middle stage of Qi training. Now it is probably still hovering in the innate realm, and it will take more than 10 or even dozens of years to have a chance to break through to the Qi training realm. After nurturing the thorny vine with spiritual power for an hour, Ling Pengyun began to comprehend the sword tactics, spells, and other daily tasks. As night fell quietly, Ling Pengyun went out of the cave, absorbed the power of the moon for a while, and then began the penultimate weapon refining in his daily life. In the first 6 months, with the help of 90 refining materials, Ling Pengyun's success rate in refining the green bamboo sword has been successfully raised to 30%, and the quality of the green bamboo sword he refined has also reached the middle level, which is no different from the green bamboo sword on the market. With such a success rate, he can also be called a first-level low-grade refiner. Ling Pengyun took out the refining furnace, a refining material, and several pieces of fiery wood, closed his eyes for a while, calmed his mind, and then began to refine. Summoned the flame to ignite the fiery wood, and the spiritual consciousness invaded the burning flame, controlling the size of the flame and heating the refining furnace. When the temperature in the refining furnace reached a certain level, Ling Pengyun successively threw a 4-foot-long Qingyan bamboo and a pound of Qingshi iron into the refining furnace. Under the action of the high temperature of the refining furnace, these two spiritual materials quickly turned into water. At this point, it is considered a real refining, and the previous stage is the preparation stage. Ling Pengyun's expression condensed, and he used his spiritual sense to find out the impurities in the water that the two spiritual materials had turned into. He used the secret technique of refining instruments and his spiritual sense as a hammer to hammer out the impurities. When it was difficult to hammer out the impurities, Ling Pengyun used the refining technique and his spiritual sense to simply merge the water states of the two spiritual materials into one, transforming them, and used his spiritual sense as a pen to engrave sharp spiritual patterns on the molten iron, performing the art of melting instruments. Everything went on in an orderly manner and no difficulties were encountered. After a while, a green bamboo sword that flashed with spiritual light was taken out of the refining furnace by Ling Pengyun. Thanks to Red Law V for the 1,500-point reward. Thanks to Book Friends 202008171833126669, Wang Zhen, a worker, Wu Iao, Red Law V, and Pifus for their monthly tickets. Chapter 59, Return to the Cloud Market. Seeing the sword being successfully refined, Ling Pengyun's mouth slightly raised, muttering to himself. The enhancement of spiritual consciousness is indeed of great benefit to refining equipment. The difficulty of refining this sword just now is much easier than before. After sighing, he closed his eyes and began to step into the cultivation that he had to do for the day. In the following 9 days, Ling Pengyun would still refine the green bamboo sword once every night. He failed 6 times and succeeded 3 times. Including the previous refining, Ling Pengyun refined a total of 4 green bamboo swords with the last 10 parts of refining materials. This also foreshadowed that Ling Pengyun's success rate in refining green bamboo swords was about to reach 40%. Only 10 parts of refining materials, 4 successes, the value is too small. Ling Pengyun did not dare to confirm whether it was because of his good luck that he refined an extra green bamboo sword. The success rate needs to be tested many times before a conclusion can be drawn. The next morning, in order to truly confirm whether his success rate in refining the green bamboo sword has reached the 4th level, Ling Pengyun planned to go to the Yanwu market to buy some refining materials, and also buy some other spiritual objects that he still longed for. He did not avoid the dangers of Qingshi village and Qingshi Mountain after he went to the Yanwu market. He found Ling Dong, the village chief of Qingshi village, and Ling Ruxin, who was in charge of the Zuanshu iron ore vein in the Qingshi lake, and told them that he would be away for a while before leaving with peace of mind. When he went to the mine to find Ling Ruxin, Ling Pengyun also looked at the 10 early-stage key training mining puppets that Balingman lent to Ling's family in the Zuanshu mine. These puppets that can work continuously as long as they are provided with spiritual stones really amazed Ling Pengyun. After leaving the mine, Ling Pengyun waved a green walking leaf, stepped on it, and flew all the way west. This green walking leaf can travel 1,500 miles a day, which is no joke. Before the sun set, he rushed to the Yunwu market. Just as Ling Pengyun was about to step into the market, he was stopped by a hunchbacked old man wearing a blue Taoist robe of the Yunwu Wen family who was stationed at the entrance of the market. "Do you have a pass token?" Ling Pengyun was a little confused when he saw that the person sitting at the entrance of the Yunwu market was not the familiar face he had seen in the previous few visits to the Yunwu market. However, he did not think much about it. He handed the market pass token he had bought with a spiritual stone to the hunchbacked old man for a look, and then he successfully entered the market. Just like the previous visits to the Yunwu market, as soon as he entered the market, he went to the Lingxiao rice hall opened by his family in this market. The lonely manager of the rice hall, Ling Rushu, was delighted to see Ling Pengyun coming, and pulled Ling Pengyun to chat. From Ling Rushu's mouth, Ling Pengyun, who had been stationed in Qingshi Mountain for many years and rarely went out, also heard a piece of news that shocked him. That was half a year ago. Yunwu Wen clan was killed by a demon cultivator because a member of the clan stationed in a low-level spiritual mountain was killed. Following the clues, they learned that the demon cultivator Li Laomo in the late stage of foundation building in Yunshu County wanted to attack the entire Wen clan. When the Wen clan learned of the danger of extermination, they secretly found the other 4 foundation building families in Zihuaishu County, persuaded the foundation building cultivators of the other 4 families, and quickly found Li Laomo and beat him severely. Hundreds of demon cultivators under Li Laomo also suffered heavy casualties. The late key training cultivator Wen Xianren, who was previously stationed in Yunwu market, also died in that demon extermination rebellion, and was replaced by Wen Ruli, a late key training cultivator of the Ruo generation of the old generation of the Wen clan, stationed in the market. Ling Pengyun's heart moved slightly, and he muttered to himself, "I didn't expect that I would be involved in this kind of thing." It was not difficult for him to guess that the demon cultivator who killed the Wen clan members stationed in the low-level spiritual mountain mentioned by Ling Rushu was the one he killed. When he left Yunwu market and was hunted by the demon cultivators, he did not tell anyone else. He did so to avoid worrying the elders of his family. After all, the matter was over and there was no point in talking about it. As for the death of Wen Xianren, a late key training cultivator who was originally stationed at the entrance of Yunwu market, it made Ling Pengyun understand why when he entered the market today, he saw an old man from the Wen family sitting in charge, and he had no feelings about anything else. Ling Rushu, who was standing by, sighed after telling the story of old Demon Li. It's good luck. If it weren't for the source of the demon-killing chaos, the key cultivating demon cultivator who killed the Wen family cultivators was eager to sacrifice the magic weapon and rashly attacked the Yunwu Wen family cultivators and the mortal clansmen. The Wen family might not have discovered that Li Laomo was going to attack the Yunwu Wen family. Who knows, there is no Yunwu Wen family in the world of immortal cultivation now, and I, an old man, will also die because of this. 15th great-grandfather, don't talk nonsense. You are blessed with a deep source of fortune. You will definitely live to be 100 years old and enjoy your old age. Ling Pengyun said. Enjoy your old age? I have no children. You take care of me in my old age. Ling Rushu joked. Ling Pengyun heard this and his expression moved slightly. Seeing Ling Rushu's serious look, he thought of the good things Ling Rushu had done to him over the years, and made up his mind and said firmly. Of course, as long as the 15th great-grandfather is willing, I will definitely serve you when you are old, and my father and mother will definitely do the same. Good boy, I love to hear this, I really take it seriously. Ling Rushu laughed. The two chatted for a few more words, and Ling Pengyun also told Ling Rushu the good news that his cultivation had broken through to the 6th level of key training. This also made the old man Ling Rushu happy for a long time, as if he had broken through his own cultivation. From this matter, it is not difficult for Ling Pengyun to see that Ling Rushu really wants him well. After Ling Rushu calmed down, Ling Pengyun also stepped into the main topic and handed over the few 3 inferior green bamboo swords in the storage bag to Ling Rushu, and put them in this Lingxiao rice hall for sale. The inferior quality green bamboo swords are not presentable, and no one buys them except those casual cultivators with limited wealth. And the remaining 14 medium quality green bamboo swords in his storage bag, Ling Pengyun intends to sell them to the family to supplement the family's magic tools. He was the family's weapon refiner. Although the family gave him 200 weapon refining materials for free, this favor was too great. It was nothing for Ling Pengyun to do a favor and sell the refined green bamboo swords to the family. Besides, the Ling family was very rich. He had as many as 14 green bamboo swords. If he sold them by himself, unless he went to a market like Huaishu Market, it would be difficult to sell them in a short time in the Yunwu Market, where there were at most 100 people every day. It would be better to wait for some time and sell them directly to the family to save trouble. By the way, Pengyun, these are the 30 spirit stones you sold for the 3 inferior quality green bamboo swords that you put in the store to sell when you came to Yunwu Market last time. After Ling Rushu took over the 5 flying swords handed over by Ling Pengyun, he thought of something and patted the storage bag on his waist, took out 30 spirit stones from it, and handed them to Ling Pengyun. 15th great-grandfather, I'm going to the Yunwu refining hall next door to buy a defensive magic weapon and a spiritual storage magic weapon, and I'll be back soon. Ling Pengyun nodded and accepted the spiritual stone, and asked. Since half a year ago, he had cultivated the first-level medium-grade magic spells, Water Arrow Talisman and Water Shield, to perfection, and he was very confident in his own strength. What's more, now he has broken through to the 6th level of key training, and his strength has increased greatly. According to his estimation, his strength should be the strongest level of the middle stage of key training, and even if he is more confident, he can fight against the 7th level of key training. Therefore, he is not afraid of any thieves in this small market who are interested in him because of the large amount of spiritual stones he spent in the market. Even if he can't beat him, he can at least run away. You can go buy spiritual objects yourself. Your cultivation is pretty good now. When I was victorious, I was only at the 6th level of key training. You can protect yourself. But if you need me to go with you, I know Wen Ruijing, the owner of Yunwu Refining Hall, and I can negotiate the price for you. Ling Rushu asked. Ling Pengyun heard that he could save spiritual stones to buy magic tools, so he naturally would not refuse. The two walked side by side, left Lingxiao Rice Hall, and went straight to Yunwu Refining Hall. Chapter 60, Turtle Spirit Shield, Jade Hairpin. The layout of Yunwu Weapon Refining Hall is no different from Lingxiao Rice Hall. There is only one counter in the store, but the spiritual objects in the counter are different. Lingxiao Rice Hall mostly displays various spiritual rice and spiritual plants, while the counter in Yunwu Weapon Refining Hall mostly displays magical instruments. As soon as Ling Rushu and Ling Pengyun entered Yunwu Weapon Refining Hall, they were noticed by Wen Ruijing, the manager who was cleaning the store in Yunwu Weapon Refining Hall. Wen Ruijing saw that the visitor was his old acquaintance Ling Rushu, and a smile appeared on his face. He said with a smile, "Brother Ling, how come you have time to come to me? You are here to buy magical instruments. To be honest, in the first half of the year, my weapon refining hall has received several superior first-level mid-grade magical instruments, including attack, defense, auxiliary, and insidious. Do you want to buy one?" Ling Rushu said after mentioning it casually. "Brother Wen, I'm already half dead, why would I buy a magical instrument? It's my good friend's descendant who wants to buy a magical instrument." After hearing the reply, Wen Ruijing noticed Ling Pengyun behind Ling Ruxin, and looked him up and down. Although Ling Pengyun was wearing an ordinary hemp robe like a casual cultivator, he had an extraordinary temperament and unfathomable cultivation. It was difficult for him, a cultivator of the 6th level of key training, to immediately judge his cultivation. Obviously, the cultivation of the young man in front of him was at least in the middle stage of key training. Young and with a high level of cultivation. When these two signs appeared, Wen Ruijing remembered that when the last Wen Xianren who was stationed in the Yunwu market was alive, he told him that there was a Ling Pengyun of the Peng generation of the Ling family who had a good relationship with Ling Rushu and often came to the Yunwu market. For a moment, he immediately guessed that the young man in front of him was the Ling Pengyun of the Peng generation of the Ling family who had a relatively outstanding talent, but he pretended not to know. It is not a good behavior to reveal the identity of someone who wants to conceal his identity. Furthermore, As a fellow cultivator from a family, he naturally knew why Ling Rushu wanted to help Ling Pengyun conceal his identity. In this world of immortal cultivation, cultivators from families and sects are symbols of wealth and are most likely to be killed by evil cultivators. According to Ling Rushu's idea, in this one family territory far away from the family, it is possible to conceal Ling Pengyun as a cultivator from the family, so he concealed a little. This young man looks familiar. Has he been to my weapon refining hall? In order to avoid any suspicion between Ling Rushu and Wen Rujing, he asked normally. Yes, I came here once 2 years ago, but the price of your magic weapon was too expensive. At that time, I was short of money, so I had to give up. I wonder if your store's turtle spirit shield and the jade hairpin are still there. The turtle spirit shield and the jade hairpin were both magic weapons that Ling Pengyun had been interested in when he first came to the Yunwu weapon refining hall 2 years ago. The turtle spirit shield is the best first-class medium-grade defensive magic weapon in the Yunwu refining hall. Like Ling Pengyun's black iron shield, it is the best magic weapon of the same class, and its defensive power is comparable to that of an ordinary first-class high-grade magic weapon. The jade hairpin is a magic weapon that stores spiritual power. It has the same effect as the Qi Dan elixir that restores spiritual power, but this storage magic weapon can be recycled, and the grade of this hairpin is also first-class medium grade. This jade hairpin is extremely important to a cultivator like Ling Pengyun, who is on the path of magic cultivation. As long as the spiritual power is sufficient, he can cast spells one after another, like a magic turret. And this magic weapon for storing spiritual power is also the foundation of the Yunwu Wen family, and the method of refining it is also extremely rare. Not to mention the entire Huaishu County, even in the entire Jingzhou area, there are only 5 forces at most who master the method of refining this thing. When Ruojing heard this, his eyes suddenly flashed with a spiritual light, and he smiled and said in a friendly manner, "The 2 magic tools are still here. You have a good eye. They are both top quality in my shop." After saying this, he put down the broom he was using to clean the place, and walked quickly to the counter in the store. He took out a magic shield engraved with a tortoise pattern and a 6-inch long hairpin that looked like jasper from the counter, and handed them to Ling Pengyun. "Please take a look, my friend. This tortoise spirit shield is made of the shell of a mid-stage key training earth-shelled tortoise, and is made of earth black iron, black gold and other spiritual irons. The jasper hairpin is made of first-grade top-grade jasper spirit jade, and is made with a special method of my Wen family. These 2 magic tools are both top-quality magic tools of the same level, so the price is quite a bit higher. The former and the latter are both sold for 150 spirit stones. I wonder if you can accept it." When Ling Pengyun heard the price, he frowned slightly and turned to Ling Rushu for help to lower the price. Ling Rushu saw Ling Pengyun's gaze, nodded, and spoke immediately. "Brother Wen, I understand that your Wen family's spirit storage magic tools are so expensive. After all, rare things are valuable. But although this turtle spirit shield is superior, the price is a bit too high. An ordinary first-grade mid-grade defensive magic tool has no more than 100 spirit stones. Although this turtle spirit shield is superior, a direct price increase of 50 spirit stones is really too expensive. If you add 10 or 20 spirit stones, you can buy a first-grade superior attack magic tool. 130 spirit stones is about right." 130 spirit stones? Brother Ling, you are bargaining too hard. If I sell it at this price, I will have a hard time explaining to my family." When Ruojing complained. 130 spirit stones are not enough, Brother Wen. Do you think I don't know that the turtle spirit shield in your shop has been in your shop for 3 or 4 years? Usually, although many casual cultivators like this shield, they are all scared away by the expensive price. If my good friend's descendants don't buy it today, I don't know how long this shield will be covered with dust here." Ling Rushu said indifferently. "Besides, we are old acquaintances. Even if you sell this shield for 130 spirit stones, I am afraid you can make a fortune from it." When Ruojing smiled awkwardly, but in order to maximize the profit of this shield, he still increased the price. "Since Brother Ling said so, I will be relieved." But Brother Ling also raised his hand and let me earn more spirit stones. "Add 5 spirit stones, 135 spirit stones, and I will sell this turtle spirit shield. However, next month when I go to Brother Ling's rice hall to buy white jade spirit rice, you have to give me a discount." "No problem, 30% discount for less than 50 kilograms. Ling Rushu said with a smile. Wen Ruojing smiled upon hearing this. 1 caddy of white jade spiritual rice costs 1 spiritual stone, and a 30% discount on 50 caddies can save 15 spiritual stones. This transaction is equivalent to an exchange of interests between the two parties. Wen Ruojing will not lose money, but Ling Rushu will suffer a little loss. After all, he did not buy the magic weapon, but he has to bear the loss. Ling Pengyun naturally understood this and kept this kindness in mind. The 15 spiritual stones that Ling Rushu lost this time are equivalent to Ling Pengyun's salary for 1.5 months. This favor is heavy. Chapter 61 Wen Nineling. Xianwen, pay the spirit stones. Ling Rushu turned his head and said. Ling Pengyun nodded in understanding, patted the storage bag on his waist, summoned out 285 spirit stones from it, and placed them on the ground. Wen Ruojing looked at the small pile of spirit stones on the ground, and was very happy. He was already secretly calculating how much spirit stones he could earn from this transaction. Because the turtle spirit shield and the jade hairpin were both superior items, the minimum price set by the family for him was not less than 130 spirit stones each. The spirit stones obtained above this price would belong to Wen Ruojing alone. I can buy a few more Huogaya pills for Xiao Nianzi, Wen Ruojing said happily. At this time, Ling Pengyun put the turtle spirit shield and the jade hairpin in his hand into the storage bag, and then took out 4 palm-sized snakeskins from the storage bag, handed them to Wen Ruojing in front of him, and asked, Senior, I have another magical weapon that I would like to ask your family's weapon refiner to help refine. I wonder if your family's weapon refiner can use these 4 pieces of blue-scaled demon python skin to refine a pair of magic shoes that can gather water spirit energy. The things that the monks wear and even the jewelry are all in the style of magical weapons. It was Ling Pengyun's idea to refine a pair of magic boots with these 4 pieces of demon python skin, but Ling Pengyun himself did not have many spiritual stones before, so he had to give up. Although he was a weapon refiner, his refining level was not high, and he could not gather water spirit patterns. When Wen Ruojing heard Ling Pengyun's words, he said in his heart, I can make a fortune again. He smiled even more brightly. My friend, you are underestimating my Wen clan. My Wen clan has dozens of refining diagrams for magic tools, and I happen to have the refining diagram for the magic shoes that condense water spirit energy. As long as there are materials, my Wen clan will naturally have someone who can refine them. Your 4 pieces of blue-scaled demon python skin are enough to refine a pair of magic shoes, but the price of entrusting my Wen clan's refiner to refine these magic shoes is not cheap. It requires 30 spirit stones. Do you think it's okay? Yes, I wonder if your family can refine these magic shoes quickly. I urgently need them. Ling Pengyun said. Wen Ruojing's expression became brighter, but he quickly concealed it, pretending to be embarrassed, thinking for a while, and then spoke. Most of the people who come to the Xianwu market are independent cultivators, and there aren't many wealthy masters who would entrust our Wen family to refine magical instruments. Most of them come to buy finished products. Therefore, there are no Wen family refiners in charge of the Xianwu market. Normally, if there are cultivators who really entrust me to refine an instrument, I will usually hand over the materials for refining a magical instrument to a special person to send it back to our Wen family's clan mountain, and then hand it over to the refiners in the family to refine it. However, for Brother Ling's sake, if you can spare 10 extra spirit stones, I can ask a refiner in the clan mountain to leave the mountain and come to the Yanwu market to help you refine a magical instrument. When Ling Pengyun heard that the price was 30% higher, he frowned slightly, hesitated for a moment, and then spoke. Okay. But I want to see the key condensation shoes at dawn tomorrow. If the refining fails, the refiner who helped me refine the magic weapon must help me refine a magic weapon for free in the future. Is that okay? Wen Ruojing frowned and wanted to refuse directly. After all, if the refining failed, it would be a big loss. But just as he was about to speak, Ling Rushu said in a deep voice, Brother Wen, it's a bit disgraceful for you to take advantage of the fire. This small request from my friend's descendant is not too much, right? Wen Ruojing saw Ling Rushu's dark face and had no choice but to agree. If he didn't agree, he was afraid that he would not be able to take this order. This time, I have to give less spirit stones to find those clan members in the family who have a higher success rate in refining magic weapons. Wen Ruojing said to himself. Afterwards, Ling Pengyun handed over the 40 spirit stones entrusted to refine the magic weapon to Wen Ruojing. There is no deposit to be paid when entrusting a big force like the Wen clan. Just mentioning Yunwuan clan is a golden signboard. The Yunwuan clan's weapon refining family is also well known within 1,000 miles. How could they cheat Ling Pengyun for a small 40 spiritual stones? Before leaving, Ling Pengyun spent 330 spiritual stones to buy 20 sets of materials for refining the green bamboo sword and 10 sets of materials for refining the round iron shield in this weapon refining hall. Because the amount was too large, under Ling Rushu's eloquence, when Ruojing also gave in this time and reduced 20 spiritual stones, the original price was 350. 10 spiritual stones for a green bamboo sword refining spiritual material, and 15 spiritual stones for a material because the defensive magic weapon round iron shield is larger in size. The purchase of magic weapons, entrusting the Wen clan's weapon refiners to refine magic weapons, and purchasing refining materials were completed. Ling Pengyun and Ling Rushu said hello to Wen Ruojing respectively and left the Yunwu refining hall. After leaving the Yunwu refining hall, Ling Pengyun and Ling Rushu went to the King's Yufu Pavilion and bought 10 water arrow talismans and 10 water shield talismans. The magic talismans were very useful. When they killed the demon cultivator not long ago, they had a significant effect. If it weren't for the high price of the first level medium grade talismans, Ling Pengyun would definitely buy a few more. Because Ling Rushu bargained with the excuse of buying a large number of talismans, this item that originally cost 110 spiritual stones to buy was also bargained down to 105 spiritual stones, saving 5 spiritual stones. Afterwards, they went to the other shops in the market and bought all the first level lower and middle grade spiritual fruits in these 5 shops. They bought 25 first level lower grade spiritual fruits and 17 first level middle grade spiritual fruits, spending a total of 201 spiritual stones. Because the spiritual fruits were rare, they were not discounted, and the bargaining was not successful. Today's crazy consumption can be said to have consumed all the spiritual stones on Ling Pengyun's body. There is only 1 spiritual stone left in the storage bag that was bulging just now. Although Ling Pengyun felt distressed, he felt that it was worth it when he thought about the harvest this time. Needless to say, the magic tools purchased this time and the magic shoes commissioned to be refined are used to improve combat power. The refining materials are to improve the skills of refining. The purchase of spiritual fruits is to improve the progress of cultivation. Moreover, he still has 14 medium-quality green bamboo swords in his storage bag, waiting for Ling Rufton to deliver the offerings soon. If he sells these 14 green bamboo swords to the family, the spiritual stones in his storage bag will increase rapidly. On the market, a medium-quality green bamboo sword can be sold for 30 spiritual stones. In the dark night, a beautiful female cultivator wearing a blue Taoist robe, tall, curvy, and with black hair draped over her shoulders, controlled a huge pengbird to land outside the entrance of the Yunwu market. When Ruli, the old man guarding the Yunwu market, saw that the person who came was Wen Nianling, the one with the best talent in refining among the younger generation of the clan. He smiled and asked curiously, "Nianling, why are you here?" Wen Nianling is the eldest of the Nian generation among the 4 generations of the Wen family, Ruo, Xian, Zhi, and Nian. She is also the only one who has achieved success in the Nian generation. Although she has poor talent in cultivation and only has 4 spiritual roots, she has a little talent in refining. She is only 28 or 29 this year, but she is already a first-level middle-grade refiner. Her success rate in refining is extremely high. Even among the refiners in the Wen family, a family of refining, she ranks among the top. When Nianling bowed to Wen Ruli and asked respectfully, "10th great-grandfather, I received a message from my 9th great-grandfather to come to this market to refine a magic weapon for a cultivator. I'm afraid that the cultivator who commissioned the refinement must have cheated a lot of spirit stones to ask you to refine the weapon." Wen Ruli said with a smile, "10th great-grandfather, my 9th great-grandfather and I are doing a serious business. We are willing to do it. There is no scam." Although Wen Nianling knew that Wen Ruli was joking, she couldn't help but refute. Wen Ruli joked, Okay, you little girl, you are so sharp-tongued. I don't know what kind of person your future husband is to be able to subdue you." After saying this, Wen Ruli left 2 laughs and turned into light and shadow in front of Wen Nianling. Wen Nianling's cheeks flushed slightly, and she said to herself with a little helplessness, "This 10th great-grandfather is really disrespectful to the elderly." With a sigh, she regained her composure and walked quickly into the entrance of the market. Along the avenue, She entered the Yunwu refining hall and met with Wen Ruijing, the owner of the Yunwu Wen family store. Wen Ruijing, who was anxiously waiting, saw Wen Nianling coming and was overjoyed. He waved his hand and handed the refining materials given by Ling Pengyun to Wen Nianling, and asked, "Nianling, you are finally here. There are about 3 hours left before the sun rises. Are you sure you can refine the magic shoes when the sun just rises?" "Of course." Wen Nianling nodded confidently. Wen Ruijing heard the answer and explained in detail. "That's great. Although I am your great-grandfather, brothers should settle accounts clearly. The man who commissioned the refining of the magic shoes spent a total of 40 spiritual stones, of which 10 spiritual stones were expedited fees, so it is calculated as 30 spiritual stones. I will take 30%, that is, 9 spiritual stones, and the rest will belong to you. The refining of the instrument must be successful this time. The person who commissioned the refining of the magic shoes may have resentment about the expedited fee, so when paying the expedited fee, a condition was added. If the refining fails, you will refine the magic instrument for him again for free in the future. It's a small matter. Even if the refining fails this time, it will only waste a few more hours in the future. Besides, great-grandfather, you still don't believe in my refining level," Wen Nianling said with a very generous smile. After Wen Nianling finished speaking, she went up to a guest room on the second floor of the Yunwu refining hall, sat quietly for a while, and then began to refine. It was naturally difficult to refine magic boots with 4 pieces of demon python skin, so Wen Nianling took out several auxiliary materials that had been prepared. In just 2 hours, a pair of magic boots with shimmering charm were refined by her. After she handed them to Wen Ruijing, Wen Nianling hurriedly left the Yunwu market. She was still anxious to return to the family to refine magic tools. Today's matter is just to make extra money, and a stable income still has to come from the family. Thank you for the 500-point reward from Jizu Lao. Thanks, time is up. Book friend 20200817183312699, Wang Zhen, a migrant worker, and Wu Iao's monthly ticket. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Book Recommendation. Wang's Immortal Path. The protagonist has only 4 points of talent and has no hope of building a foundation. He accidentally obtains the peach core, rises to prominence, cultivates both magic and body, and then uses formations to help the family, improves the 100 arts of cultivation, and leads the family to slowly become stronger. Family immortality. I can see hints reborn in an immortal family, with system hints in hand, led the family to the immortal family. Recommend the books of 2 friends. In addition, I would like to thank all the big guys for their follow-up reading, which successfully promoted this book to the recommendation. There will be another round next week, and I am greedy and want to take another round. Everyone, please follow me and thank you. Although the update is still 2 chapters, it is at least 5 or 6,000 words every day, not less. Important things are said 3 times, please follow me and read. Exclamation mark. Chapter 63 Ling Ruda's Surprise. The next day, when the sun was rising, Ling Pengyun came to the Yunwu refining hall as promised, and successfully got the water-gathering shoes. Water-gathering shoes was the name Ling Pengyun gave to the pair of magic boots made of blue-scaled demon python skin. The appearance of these shoes is blue, not much different from ordinary shoes, but its effect makes Ling Pengyun love it very much. Even if Ling Pengyun has not yet sacrificed the water-gathering magic shoes, he can only place 70% of the effect of these shoes, but as long as he injects spiritual power into them, he can still quickly gather the thin water spirit energy within more than 40 feet around. In battle, the effect of these shoes can also help Ling Pengyun to consume less when casting his main water spells. If he is in a place with abundant spiritual energy, it can also help Ling Pengyun gather water spirit energy more easily. This shoe is also of high quality. The craftsman who made this shoe must be a person with profound knowledge of craftsmanship. Yunwu clan is indeed a family of craftsmanship. It is indeed full of talented people. Ling Pengyun sighed as he looked at the water-gathering shoes in his hand, which were engraved with 2 water-gathering spiritual patterns. Afterwards, Ling Pengyun went to the tiger roaring beast hall again to look for flying spirit beasts that were asleep. Unfortunately, like last time, the spirit beasts in the beast hall were all relatively ordinary. After returning to Midden and saying goodbye to Ling Rushu, Ling Pengyun left the Yunwu market and returned to Qingshi Mountain. This time, he did not encounter any accidents like last time. Because of the green leaves, Ling Pengyun returned to Qingshi Mountain before the sun set. During the day he was away, Qingshi Mountain remained the same as before. The first time Ling Pengyun returned to Qingshi Mountain, he watered the spirit plants in the 6-acre spirit field on the top of the mountain with spiritual rain. After the spiritual rain was finished, he returned to the cave halfway up the mountain, sat cross-legged on a cushion, took a spiritual fruit pot on this trip, closed his eyes and practiced the skills, refining the spiritual energy contained in the flesh in his stomach, and replenishing the spiritual power consumed by the green leaf on the road. Not long after the night fell, Ling Pengyun also woke up from his practice. He walked out of the cave and absorbed the power of the moonlight for a while. After he returned to the cave, he immediately took out the materials for the green bamboo sword he bought this time and used the black flame refining furnace to refine the green bamboo sword. Today's refining was not lucky and ended in failure. Ling Pengyun felt a little sorry for this failure. After all, if he failed once, 10 spiritual stones would be gone. In the next 20 days, Ling Pengyun would refine the green bamboo sword once a day as usual. On the 20th day, Ling Pengyun looked at the green bamboo sword in his hand that had just come out of the furnace and was successfully refined with the last batch of materials, and his expression was slightly happy. He tapped the storage bag again and summoned the remaining 8 green bamboo swords that he had successfully refined from the 20 pieces of refining materials he had purchased at the Yunwu market in the past 20 days. Looking at the 9 green bamboo swords in front of him, Ling Pengyun's smile became even brighter, and he muttered to himself, "A green bamboo sword is worth 30 spiritual stones on the market. The family has always been fair. Even if I have a lot of green bamboo swords, they will at least buy them for 25 spiritual stones. So, I can make a net profit of at least 25 spiritual stones from the 9 green bamboo swords that I have successfully refined this time. If the family gives a higher price, I'm afraid I can earn more spiritual stones." Although the Ling family is fair and treats the clan members very well, Ling Pengyun has too many green bamboo swords in his hands. There are only so many Ling family members, and most of the green bamboo swords in Ling Pengyun's hands will be sold by the family in various markets and markets. It also costs money for the family to sell these green bamboo swords, including labor, transportation, store rent, etc. After Ling Pengyun was delighted, he took out the Lingxiao refining treasure book and carefully memorized the solid spiritual pattern method required for refining the round iron shield in the record of the treasure book. He closed his eyes and began to comprehend. As a refiner, it is not a good thing to only refine one magic weapon. There are only so many cultivators in a place. If a certain magic weapon is refined more, the market will eventually be full. Only by learning to refine a variety of magic weapons can you become rich and rely on the spiritual stones earned from refining to feed back your cultivation. After comprehending for an hour, Ling Pengyun stopped and turned to practice the skills to refine the spiritual power left over from the spiritual fruit he swallowed in the afternoon, and consolidate his cultivation that had just broken through to the 6th level of key training. At the end of June, after Ling Rufin came to deliver the offerings, Ling Pengyun gave Ling Rufin a storage bag and asked him to take it back to the family and hand it over to Ling Ruda, the elder who was in charge of the General Affairs Hall. Although Ling Rufin was curious about why Ling Ruda and Ling Pengyun had been passing storage bags to each other in the past 6 months, he did not ask. Neither of them took the initiative to tell him what was in the storage bag, because they naturally did not want him to know. After Ling Rufin delivered the offerings for the next 6 months to all the clan members stationed in the outer spiritual veins within the family territory, he returned to the family and immediately handed the storage bag that Ling Pengyun had given him to the family elder Ling Ruda. In the General Affairs Hall on the hillside of the towering Lingxiao Mountain, which soars into the sky. After Ling Ruda sent Ling Rufin away, he took a storage bag and walked into a small compartment in the General Affairs Hall, transferred spiritual power, erased the symbolic spiritual imprint in the storage bag in his hand, injected spiritual power, and summoned all the things in the storage bag. 23 green bamboo swords in a letter flew from the storage bag to the ground. Ling Ruda was slightly surprised to see so many green bamboo swords appear in front of him. He picked up a bamboo sword and looked at it. He found that it was extremely sharp and shining. It was of medium quality. He looked happy. As he picked up other bamboo swords from the ground and observed their quality, he found that they were all of medium quality. His face became more and more happy. Pengyun really became a weapon refiner. Ling Ruda exclaimed. At this time, he noticed the ordinary letter on the ground. He waved his hand and took it in his hand, and carefully read the contents. After seeing this, Ling Ruda laughed and said to himself, I didn't expect that with only 250 pieces of Qingshi sword's spiritual materials, Pengyun could raise the success rate of refining Qingshi sword to 40%. This talent for refining is not weaker than Yunan's at the beginning. My Ling family's refining skills are really passed down. After he calmed down, he went straight to the clan storehouse on the top of the mountain, took a lot of spiritual stones and refining materials from it, and then rode a fairy crane alone, out of Lingxiao Mountain, and headed straight for Qingshi Mountain. As soon as he entered Qingshi Mountain, Ling Pengyun, who had heard the fairy crane's iconic crane cry early, also left a cave halfway up the mountain and went up to the top of the mountain to meet him. Ling Ruda said happily to Ling Pengyun, Pengyun, I have read the green bamboo sword in the storage bag you gave to brother Jiu, as well as the things written in the letter. The family did not misjudge you. However, in order to confirm the truth of what you said, you still need to refine the green bamboo sword 10 times in front of me to confirm whether you really have a 40% success rate in refining the green bamboo sword. After saying this, Ling Ruda took out a bulging storage bag from his arms and summoned 10 materials for refining the green bamboo sword from it. Ling Pengyun did not care about Ling Ruda's doubts. He was engaged in the art of refining, facing the entire Ling family, so it was natural for Ling Ruda to attach so much importance to it. Okay. Ling Pengyun nodded and responded. After putting the refining materials into the storage bag, he took Ling Ruda down to the cave halfway up the mountain. Back in the cave, Ling Pengyun first sat quietly for a while to restore his condition to the best, and then took out the refining materials, the black flame refining furnace, and the burning wood to start refining the green bamboo sword. Because the spiritual power in his body was only enough to refine the green bamboo sword 3 times in a row, it took 3 full days to refine the 10 refining materials. During the 3 days of refining, Ling Pengyun gained some insights into refining and increased the success rate of refining the green bamboo sword to 50%. And the 10 refining materials given by Ling Ruda also refined 5 green bamboo swords. Chapter 64 The Family's Formal Commission. Ling Ruda was even happier when he saw Ling Pengyun had refined 5 green bamboo swords with 10 refining materials. Now the family also has a first-class top-grade refining inheritance. Yunan is old, and it is difficult for him to go further and become a first-class top-grade refiner. Pengyun is not only young, but also entered the Tao midway. He has achieved such an achievement in refining. It is possible that this child will become the first-class top-grade refiner since the establishment of our Ling family. The value of a first-class top-grade refiner is self-evident. If there is a first-class top-grade refiner, it will also indicate that the ordinary first-class magic tools needed by the Ling family will no longer need to be purchased from the outside world, which is enough to reduce the loss of spiritual stones within the family to outside the family. After 3 full breaths, he came back to his senses and said to Ling Pengyun with a smile on his face, Pengyun, since your success rate in refining the green bamboo sword is over 30%, you should also contribute to the family. Now, on behalf of the family, I entrust you to refine the green bamboo sword. The materials will be provided by the family. Since your success rate in refining the green bamboo sword is as high as 50%, you can get 5 spiritual stones for refining 1 green bamboo sword. Do you think this price is to your liking? I am a refiner trained by the family, so I should naturally contribute to the family. Ling Pengyun did not hesitate too much and answered directly. At the beginning, the family unconditionally gave him 50 portions of materials for refining the green bamboo sword to try to refine the weapon, and then gradually gave him 200 portions of refining materials in the next 2 years. He could not forget this kindness. Moreover, he did not need to provide the refining materials, which was equivalent to not having to bear the failure. He could also get 5 spiritual stones for refining 1 sword, which was not bad. When Ling Ruda heard Ling Pengyun's reply, he was relieved. He took out a bulging storage bag from his arms, handed it to Ling Pengyun, and said, There are a total of 100 materials for refining green bamboo swords in this storage bag. You need to refine at least 50 green bamboo swords. As for the extra green bamboo swords you refine with these materials, the family will purchase them at 25 spiritual stones for each one. There are also 100 spiritual materials for refining round iron shields. They are the family's support for you. To be honest, the family is financially unable to give you as many refining materials as before to increase your success rate in refining. However, the 100 materials for refining round iron shields that I give you now are the same as before. The refined round iron shields belong to you alone. You must make good use of these 100 materials and try your best to increase the success rate of refining round iron shields. If it is less than 30%, you will need to purchase the materials yourself to increase the success rate of refining round iron shields. In addition to these refining materials, there are 575 spiritual stones in this storage bag. The family also bought the 23 green bamboo swords you refined for 25 spiritual stones. This price is lower than the market price because the family does not need so many green bamboo swords. They will be sold in various markets and workshops, so there are labor costs, transportation costs and other expenses. I hope you understand. Ling Pengyun took the storage bag and said with a smile, I am satisfied with this price. I will let the family arrange everything about refining. However, 11th great-grandfather, I don't know what I said in the letter about the fairy crane, ahem. Ling Ruda was very satisfied with Ling Pengyun's answer, and his smile was even more, but when he heard the fairy crane, his brows suddenly frowned. In the letter, Ling Pengyun not only told Ling Ruda about refining, but also expressed the idea of wanting a fairy crane as a spirit beast. Ling Ruda said helplessly, Pengyun, there are only so many fairy cranes in the family. Apart from the clan leader and the 6 elders of my family who are each allocated one, there are only 4 left. One of the 4 is needed to transport the offerings to the 9th brother, and the other 3 are in the hands of the clansmen stationed in the 3 small towns within the Ling family. They also need to rely on these extremely fast fairy cranes to provide timely support when the subordinate villages are in danger, and they are not available. The fairy cranes reproduce slowly, and they will lay an egg every 30 years. It has been only 10 years since the last time the fairy cranes laid eggs. I am afraid it will take nearly 20 years for the cranes to lay eggs again. The matter of the fairy cranes is really difficult to deal with. If you really want it, I can give you my fairy crane. Anyway, that fairy crane will belong to you after you take over my job. Just consider it as an opportunity for you to cultivate feelings with that fairy crane in advance. When Ling Pengyun heard this, he was tempted, but he didn't dare to ask for it. 11th great-grandfather, as the chief elder of the family, it would be fine if I borrow your fairy crane for some time, but if it is for a long time, I am afraid that many members of the family will have objections. Ling Ruda agreed. The fairy crane can be said to be a superior flying spirit beast. It is not only an excellent spirit beast for transportation, but also a great helper. Naturally, everyone in the Ling family wants it, including some of Ling Pengyun's elders. After thinking about it carefully, he made a better suggestion. Yes, there are many eyes on the fairy crane in the family. In the future, if there are members of the family selling flying monster eggs or spirit beasts, I will definitely notify you as soon as possible. In addition, I will also ask the members of the family outside to help you keep an eye out for flying spirit beasts with better qualifications. Thank you, 11th great-grandfather. Ling Pengyun thanked him. Ling Ruda waved his hand and asked Ling Pengyun about his progress in spiritual planting and whether he encountered any difficulties. When he heard that his successor had comprehended the Lingxiao ripening technique to the 2nd level, and that he only needed to upgrade his own spiritual plant to the 1st grade middle grade, and then he could become a 1st grade middle grade spiritual plant husband, Ling Ruda was overjoyed and shouted that he had not made a mistake in choosing him. After a long pause, Ling Ruda put away his joy and pride and helped Ling Pengyun solve the problems he encountered in the spiritual plant. Before leaving, Ling Ruda handed Ling Pengyun a new Lingxiao refining treasure book that was inherited from the 1st grade upper grade refining technique obtained by the family from Balingman, and was combined with the Ling family's own refining method. Although this refining book only contains the initial chapter of key training, it records a lot of things, such as 10 refining diagrams of 1st grade lower grade magic tools, and there are also many refining spiritual patterns. In addition to the refining book, Ling Ruda also told Ling Pengyun to practice well, and cultivation is the fundamental word, and also told Ling Pengyun not to forget the spiritual plant because of the refining method. Before we knew it, it was the time of the autumnal equinox again. Every time this solar term came, the villagers of Qingshi village would harvest the ripe rice in the rice fields. After 10 busy days, in mid-October, All the 10,000 mu of rice fields outside Qingshi village were harvested. On this night, after the autumn harvest in Qingshi village every year, at the lively harvest banquet, the village chief Ling Dong pulled a shy, very outstanding woman in a white plain dress, stood up from the wine table, and loudly announced a good news to the more than 3,000 villagers at the harvest banquet. Everyone, in 3 days, I will marry Chunian. My adoptive father is old and my adoptive mother passed away early. I don't know much about the arrangements for the wedding banquet. I would like to ask the elders in the village to help. The wedding banquet will still be held on the spacious flat ground here. There will be plenty of good wine and good meat. Although Ling Dong was born to cultivator, after he was found to have no spiritual roots at the age of 8, his parents sent Ling Dong to a mortal family in a mortal village to be raised in accordance with the ancestral precepts of the Ling family. The villagers in Qingshi village had already guessed about this matter, so they didn't feel strange. Living in the same village, no one's family's affairs are secrets. However, the villagers of Qingshi village were also supportive and congratulated one after another. Sitting at the same table with Ling Dong, his adoptive father Ling Jin, who was nearly 90 years old, trembled and held a bowl of wine, and smiled and toasted Ling Dong. Little Dongzi, you must treat Chunian well in the future. You are not young anymore. Hurry up and have a child with Chunian. Otherwise, when you are old, the child will just walk. Isn't it a joke? Ling Dong felt that what his adoptive father said made sense. He was now over 40 years old. If he had not been immersed in martial arts, ordinary people of his age would have married and had children in their 20s. But Mo Chunian, who was beside Ling Dong, had a pale face. When he heard the words of the elders of Qingshi village, the 2 red cheeks on his cheeks became deeper, and his face was like a red apple. Afterwards, many people who were very close to Ling Dong came to congratulate Ling Dong and toasted him. Chapter 65 Ling Dong gets married. At midnight, the harvest banquet ended. Ling Dong, who was drunk, brought Mo Chunian, who was about to get married, to the foot of Qingshi Mountain. Immortal, please come and see me. Ling Dong raised his head and shouted to Qingshi Mountain. Ling Pengyun, who was practicing on the hillside of Qingshi Mountain, heard the call from outside the mountain and did not dare to delay. He immediately went down the mountain and landed in front of Ling Dong. Who is this? Ling Pengyun saw a strange woman standing next to Ling Dong. The two stood very close to each other, and it seemed that their relationship was not ordinary. He was puzzled. Immortal, this is my wife, her surname is Mo, her name is Chunian. In 3 days, I will get married with Chunian. Immortal, I want you to help me tell my parents and ancestors about this marriage news. Ling Dong first explained Mo Chunian's identity to Ling Pengyun, and then pleaded. Yes. Ling Pengyun nodded to Ling Dong and replied. He silently recited a spell in his heart and cast a small spell confusion to bless his body. He blinked his eyes and 2 purple lights attached to his eyes. He stared at Mo Chunian and asked calmly. Where is your ancestral home? How many people are there in your family? Are you and Ling Dong really in love? Did you bring it to get close to Ling Dong deliberately? Mo Chunian was attracted by the strange light in Ling Pengyun's eyes. After just a glance, she lost consciousness and answered one by one in a daze. Report. Immortal, my ancestral home has long been lost. My father is a refugee and my mother is from the Ling family. I originally lived with the Ling family in Yunchu County. A few years ago, I moved to Zizi town with my parents and the Ling family. Ling Pengyun heard the words and observed whether Mo Chunian was really confused. Seeing his confused expression, he believed that what Mo Chunian said was true. The bewitching technique is a minor magic technique with little lethality, and is usually used as a means of interrogation. This time, Ling Pengyun interrogated Mo Chunian because he became suspicious after hearing Mo Chunian's name. Although more than 70% of the mortals in Anyang County are Ling's mortal clan members, and more than 30% of the human race are foreigners, the surname Mo is relatively rare, so Ling Pengyun resorted to this last resort to avoid this person's origin being problematic. Ling Dong's origin is not small, and his elders are all cultivators. If there is a problem with his wife who sleeps in the same bed, it will be troublesome. Knowing Mo Chunian's origin, Ling Pengyun also withdrew the bewitching technique. His expression slightly moved, and the purple light attached to his eyes suddenly dissipated. After the purple light disappeared, Mo Chunian also returned to normal. Mo Chunian did not feel anything about the bewitching technique, nor did she remember what she had just told Ling Pengyun, nor did she feel any discomfort. Ling Dong, who had seen this, knew that the immortal in front of him had no ill intentions. Although he was worried, he did not say much. This is a pound of spiritual honey, which is used by cultivators. Regular consumption will improve your physical fitness. If you have a minor illness, a mouthful can cure it. This honey is my gift to you for your marriage. As for Lingdong, your parents and ancestors, I will send a message in time. Leave now. Ling Pengyun patted the storage bag on his waist, summoned a small earthenware jar from it, and handed it to Lingdong. Lingdong was slightly surprised to see that the gift from Ling Pengyun was spiritual honey, but he also thought that it might be because of his elders. After taking the small earthenware jar, he bowed and led Mo Chunian to salute Ling Pengyun. After the salute, the two did not stay for long and left the place quickly. Ling Pengyun also went to the bottom of Qingshi Lake and found Ling Ruxin, who was in charge of the Zuanshu iron ore vein at the bottom of the lake. He entrusted him to return to Lingxiao Mountain to tell Ling Ruguo, who was lying on the bed and unable to move, and his wife Wang Yun, who was taking care of Ling Ruguo, the good news of Lingdong. As for Lingdong's father, Ling Yunming, who was ranked 18th in the Yun generation, he was working in the Huaishu market thousands of miles away, so it was difficult to send a message immediately. Lingxiao Mountain. Ling Ruxin rode a ferry crane and landed outside a courtyard halfway up the mountain. After getting off the ferry crane, he walked straight to the door and knocked on it. Dong! Dong! The sound rang out. Not long after, a dignified middle-aged woman came to open the door. This woman was named Wang Yun, Lingdong's mother and Ling Yunming's Taoist partner. Wang Yun was originally a casual cultivator, and later married Lingdong's father Ling Yunming by chance. 13th uncle, why are you back? Wang Yun was a little confused when she saw Ling Ruxin's arrival, and asked curiously. She knew that Ling Ruxin was now in charge of the clan, in that Zuanshu iron vein, and Ling Ruxin would not leave easily during unusual times. Lingdong is going to get married, let me tell you, and my third brother. Ling Ruxin smiled rarely on his cold face and spoke. Wang Yun was immediately delighted and said with a smile. Xiaodong is finally willing to get married, which is a good thing. Although she only raised this son without spiritual roots until he was 8 years old, she forced him to go to the mortal world because of his lack of spiritual roots. But there is no parent in the world who doesn't love their children. Although Wang Yun has rarely met Lingdong in recent years, she has sent Lingdong many good things on weekdays. Uncle 13, please come in. Dad is in a very bad condition these days. I'm afraid he will die in a few months. Xiaodong's good news can also cheer Dad up. Wang Yun made a gesture of invitation and said in a low voice. Hearing this, Ling Ruxin's heart skipped a beat, and he was stunned for a moment. A trace of loneliness appeared on his face, and then he followed Wang Yun's steps and entered the courtyard. Under Wang Yun's guidance, Ling Ruxin entered a room in the courtyard. This room was relatively simple, but it had all the necessary furniture. As soon as Ling Ruxin entered the room, he looked at Ling Ruguo, who was lying on the bed, with a dead look, wrinkled face, white hair, and napping, and felt even more uncomfortable. Ling Ruguo was his cousin. When he was young, this brother helped him a lot. It was not until he went out to gain experience that his relationship with his cousin faded a little. Now the cousin who had a good relationship with him was about to die. At this time, Wang Yun quickly stepped forward, came to the bed, gently shook Ling Ruguo's arm who was napping, and whispered in Ling Ruguo's ear. Dad, Uncle 13 is here. Ling Ruguo, who was sleeping, heard the call and opened his eyes dazedly. Seeing Ling Ruxin's arrival, a flash of joy flashed in his cloudy eyes, and he said tremblingly. 13th brother, why are you here? Ling Ruxin forced a smile and said. Third brother, Lingdong will get married in 3 days. Ling Ruguo, who was not long for life, heard such news and felt happy from the inside. The dead air on his body also dissipated a lot because of this joy, and his face also had a little red light. Great, great. Little Dongzi is finally getting married. Ling Ruguo's voice became more powerful. Although Lingdong was immortal, he was also his only grandson. He missed him very much and visited Lingdong many times in these years. Lingdong was only 40 years old, but he had reached the highest level of the innate 9th level of the mortal world, thanks to the various elixirs given by Ling Ruguo. Ling Ruguo was delighted and pleaded with Ling Ruxin. 13th brother, can you take me to Qingshi village? I want to go to my grandson's wedding banquet. Third brother, the clan mountain is far away from Qingshi Mountain. Although there are fairy cranes, the bumpy journey may accelerate your physical decline. Ling Ruxin looked at Ling Ruguo's current state and said worriedly, "Yes, Dad." Wang Yun, who was standing beside him, also had a worried look on his face and persuaded him. "I've lived enough. Instead of lingering on in this bed, I might as well go and see the most important thing in my grandson's life." Ling Ruguo, who was lying on the bed, didn't care at all and looked serious. "13th brother, I have never begged you. Do you want me to beg you?" Seeing this, Ling Ruguo sighed helplessly and nodded in agreement. "Okay. Xiaoyan, you can go with me too." Thanks to Falling Cherry Blossoms, Book Friend 201,810,090,241,600, Brother Wong of Degongzi, and Angel Walker's monthly ticket. Chapter 66 Qingshi Village Memorial Day. The three of them left immediately. Ling Ruxin and Wang Yun helped Ling Ruguo stand up slowly from the bed, left the courtyard, and rode the fairy crane together to leave Lingxiao Mountain. During the flight, in order to take care of the weak Ling Ruguo, Ling Ruxin specially released a layer of light film to block the strong wind during the flight, so that Ling Ruguo could feel better. But even without the strong wind, Ling Ruguo could hardly even straighten his back on weekdays, let alone sit on the fairy crane for half a day. If he hadn't insisted on the joy of Ling Dong's marriage, he would not be able to bear the pain of sitting for a long time. After arriving at Qingshi Village, Wang Yun and Ling Ruguo both lived in Ling Dong's home. Wang Yun, the mother, was very satisfied with Ling Dong's upcoming daughter-in-law Mo Chunian. After the wedding banquet ended 2 days later, Ling Ruguo and Wang Yun did not return to the clan mountain, but stayed in Qingshi Village. It was because Ling Ruguo wanted to see his grandson more in the last time, and even hoped to see the day when Ling Dong had a child. Ling Dong and his wife also worked hard day and night. Time passed quickly, and it was August of the following year. Soon after Mo Chunian, who had been pregnant for 10 months, gave birth to a son, Ling Ruguo, who was already 112 years old, had fulfilled his long-cherished wish and was free from worries. A few days later, Ling Ruguo passed away. On this day, all the members of the Ling family who were in the clan mountain put down their affairs, followed the clan leader Ling Yunhong, dressed in mourning clothes, and came to the secular village of Qingshi Village to mourn the elder Ling Ruguo, who had contributed a lot to the family throughout his life. All the houses in the entire Qingshi Village were also hung with white cloth. Thousands of former villagers of Qingshi Village and dozens of Ling clan members gathered outside the ancestral hall of Qingshi Village to see Ling Ruguo off. Ling Yunhong, a member of the Ling clan, stood in the main seat and praised the great things Ling Ruguo had done for the family throughout his life. This day was also called Memorial Day by Qingshi Village. Every year after that, Ling Dong, the village chief, would lead the villagers to pay tribute to their ancestors. The other villagers of Qingshi Village did not feel disgusted by this, but felt honored, because this was to pay tribute to the immortal. The immortals lived and left their hometowns, and dozens of immortals gathered to see them off. This was a beautiful thing. There were not many villages and towns in the entire Ling family territory that had such a thing. Time passed, and more than a year passed in a blink of an eye. This was also the 4th year that Ling Pengyun came to Qingshi Mountain, just in early September. At the top of a Qingshi Mountain, the spiritual plants that had been planted for only 9 months in 6 acres had matured. Ling Pengyun, who was stationed at Qingshi Mountain, squatted beside the 2 acres of yellow jade spiritual rice and counted how many spiritual grains were hanging on each of the 10 spiritual rice ears in the 2 acres of yellow jade spiritual rice. Because the quality of the spiritual soil of the 2 acres of yellow jade spiritual rice was the same, the number of fruits on each yellow jade spiritual rice was also similar, and each spiritual rice ear had about 50 spiritual grains. This situation also made Ling Pengyun very happy. According to the calculation that each spiritual rice plant has 50 spiritual grains, this year's 2 acres of spiritual rice should be able to produce about 1,200 kilograms per acre. This harvest is much higher than last year and the year before, and that earthworm in the key training stage has made a great contribution. Since one of the 3 earthworms in the 6 acres of spiritual soil advanced to the key training stage, they devoured the spiritual soil in the 6 acres of spiritual fields, and the speed of improving the spiritual soil quality has also increased a lot. In just 3.5 years, the quality of the spiritual soil in the 6 acres of spiritual fields on the top of the mountain has been improved from C grade to B grade. The spiritual energy contained in B grade spiritual soil is much stronger than that of C grade spiritual soil, and B-grade spiritual soil can also speed up the growth rate of spiritual plants of the same level by 20%, and increase the number of fruits of multi-fruit spiritual plants. For example, spiritual plants that can bear multiple fruits, such as spiritual grains, can produce more spiritual grains if they grow in spiritual soil with high quality. 2 years ago, when the spiritual soil of these 2 mu of yellow jade spiritual rice was still grade C, each mu produced about 1,100 kilograms. Delighted, Ling Pengyun, relying on the master recognition restriction, summoned the 3 earthworms in the spiritual soil, and his eyes fell on the earthworm that was 2 fingers wide and in the early stage of key training. Feeling that its breath was a little stronger than 3 days ago, Ling Pengyun looked slightly happy and muttered to himself, "I didn't make a mistake in passing the breath of yin and yang Taichu Qi to this little earthworm. Judging from its current breath, it will probably try to break through to the middle stage of key training in 1 or 2 years. With the speed of progress in cultivation, this earthworm has a small hope of breaking through to the key training perfection, and even the foundation building stage." Thinking about it this way, the earthworm's own qualifications are probably not bad, otherwise it would be difficult to improve so quickly. As for the other 2 earthworms, they are still stuck in the same state as a few years ago, still stuck in the innate perfection realm, without any progress. Ling Pengyun also thought this was normal. Earthworms are difficult to break through. If earthworms can easily enter the key training realm, it is impossible for the Ling family, which is so big, to have only more than 20 earthworms in the key training realm. In addition to these 3 earthworms, Ling Pengyun has also made some gains in other aspects in the more than 1 year after Ling Dong's wedding banquet. In the way of refining tools, he not only increased the success rate of refining green bamboo swords to 60%, but also relied on the 100 materials for refining round iron shields that Ling Ruda gave him a year ago. He successfully increased the success rate of refining round iron shields to 30%. The success rate of refining round iron shields can be improved so quickly, and it is also because of the experience of refining green bamboo swords. After all, they are all tools, but the objects are different. In the tool refining spirit pattern, Ling Pengyun also comprehended 4 doors through the brand new Lingxiao tool refining treasure book that Ling Ruda came to Qingshi Mountain and sent at the end of last year, namely fire gathering, light body, quick, and ice. Ling Pengyun was not a beginner in refining equipment, and this achievement was within Ling Pengyun's expectations. In addition to refining equipment, Ling Pengyun's daily life also had some small changes. Last July, the thorny vine of his life spirit plant reached a bottleneck, and he no longer needed to use spiritual power to cultivate it. Ling Pengyun had a lot of time, and he also picked up the matter of improving spiritual rice with water spirit rice and golden marrow rice that he had given up in the past. Over the past year or so, he would experiment with improving spiritual rice once a day. Although these 300 or 400 experiments ended in failure, it did not wipe out Ling Pengyun's desire to improve a kind of spiritual rice as a spirit plant husband. Improving spiritual plants can be said to be the lifelong wish of every spirit plant husband. Ling Pengyun was stunned for a while, then came to his senses, pinched his fingers and performed the cloud rain technique to water the 6 acres of spiritual plants on the top of the mountain. Although these 6 acres of spiritual plants are mature, they need to wait for the special personnel sent by the family to come and harvest them. As usual, they will be given spiritual rain, which can also enhance the spiritual energy contained in the topaz spiritual rice, as well as the medicinal properties of the sword star grass and the key training grass. Chapter 67, Thorn Vines Feedback Spiritual Power. After Ling Pengyun cast a wave of spiritual rain on the 6 acres of spiritual fields on the top of the mountain, he removed the cloud and rain spell and stepped back to the cave halfway up the mountain. Sitting cross-legged on the futon and practicing for a while, Ling Pengyun felt his current cultivation level and his expression changed slightly. It has been more than a year since I broke through to the 6th level of key training. My cultivation level is so stable that it can't be more stable. It's time to break through. Having made up his mind, Ling Pengyun waved his hand and patted the storage bag on his waist, summoning 200 spiritual stones from it. Then he immediately closed his eyes and sent his thoughts to the finger-sized thorn vine that usually attached to his chest under his Taoist robe. Attached to the pile of spiritual stones next to me, and absorb the spiritual energy used for breakthrough from the pile of spiritual stones. The small piece of thorn vine received a signal from its master Ling Pengyun and immediately did so. Countless small roots grew at the bottom of its body. These roots were like legs, constantly wriggling, gradually leaving Ling Pengyun's chest, along the cuffs of the Taoist robe, and falling on the pile of spiritual stones. Once it landed in the pile of spiritual stones, this small thorn vine, which was only the length of a finger, began to grow wildly, differentiating into countless branch vines and turning into a thorn bush. Countless roots also grew from the bottom of the thorn bush and attached themselves to each spiritual stone on the pile of spiritual stones, absorbing the spiritual energy in the spiritual stones all the time. With the influx of these spiritual energies, coupled with a huge and pure spiritual power that had been brewing in the thorn vine's body for several years, the bottleneck of the middle stage of key training that had trapped it for several years was broken through in just a few hours. As early as more than a year ago, this thorn vine was confident that it would break through this bottleneck. After a year of precipitation, it was normal for it to break through this bottleneck so easily. Once the bottleneck was broken, the thorn bush absorbed the spiritual energy of the spiritual stones in the pile of spiritual stones at a speed several times faster, like a vortex, and even the spiritual energy in the bluestone mountain was madly absorbed into its body. However, within 100 breaths, the remaining 70% of the spiritual energy in the hundreds of spiritual stones was completely absorbed by the thorn bush. Without spiritual energy, the spiritual stones became rotten. The thorn bush was not feeling well after madly absorbing the spiritual energy from hundreds of spiritual stones. Each branch of the thorn vine grew as thick as an arm, and even many vines had small cracks due to too much spiritual energy in their bodies. But even so, the thorn vine still didn't care, and didn't refine the spiritual energy to nourish itself. It simply used the mu essence of the foundation in its body to purify the violent spiritual energy into the most gentle spiritual energy. In just half an hour, this large amount of spiritual energy was tamed by the thorn vines consuming a large amount of mu essence. The next moment, the thorn bush turned into a worm again, moving with the help of the roots at the bottom, and wrapped Ling Pengyun, who was sitting on the futon next to him, tightly. Repay the debt. At this time, Ling Pengyun also said in a deep voice. As soon as the words fell, the thorn bush that wrapped around Ling Pengyun flashed green light, and all the spiritual power that had been tamed into a gentle and pure state was transferred into Ling Pengyun's body. Because the thorn vines and Ling Pengyun were of the same origin, and the large amount of spiritual power had been purified by the Yimu origin, the large amount of spiritual power that was transferred into Ling Pengyun's body was just like the spiritual power that Ling Pengyun cultivated himself. He didn't need to practice the exercises to refine it. He only needed to use his spiritual consciousness to send it into the dantian to improve his cultivation. In just 100 breaths, Ling Pengyun's dantian was filled, and his cultivation quickly reached the peak of the 6th level of key training. Ling Pengyun was naturally not satisfied with the peak of the 6th level of key training. He mobilized the remaining small amount of pure spiritual power that the thorn bush had transferred into his body, as well as his own spiritual power, and frantically attacked the unexplainable and inexplicable bottleneck together. After 3 consecutive power-accumulating attacks, the bottleneck was loosened a little, but it was only loose, and the bottleneck was still intact. This situation made Ling Pengyun frown. This bottleneck of the 7th level of key training is worthy of being praised as the most difficult bottleneck to break through during the key training period. The solidity of this bottleneck alone is probably at least 3 or 4 times stronger than the bottleneck of the 6th level of key training. I missed the opportunity to feed back the spiritual power of the thorny vines this time. It will be even more difficult to break through this bottleneck by relying on my own strength in the future. Ling Pengyun made up his mind and took out 3 first-level medium-quality spiritual fruits from the storage bag and stuffed them into his mouth. Then he took out the last 240 spiritual stones from the storage bag and let the thorn bushes separate their roots again to absorb the spiritual energy in it, purify it with the Yimu origin in a short time, and pass it to himself. Although the spiritual power in the spiritual fruit is mild, it can't bear to swallow 3 spiritual fruits at once. This huge spiritual fruit power directly bulged the meridians in Ling Pengyun's body. This bloating and pain also made Ling Pengyun feel uncomfortable, but facing the breakthrough, he could only endure the pain and practice the green water technique to transfer this large amount of spiritual fruit power into dantian to join the battle line of attacking the bottleneck. On the other side, the thorn bush branched out vines and absorbed the spiritual energy in the small pile of spiritual stones that had just been taken out on the ground. It was also uncomfortable. Before purification, the spiritual energy in the 200 spiritual stones consumed more than 20% of the essence of Yimu in its body, and some of the branch vines that it transformed from itself had cracks. Once it consumes Yimu essence to purify spiritual power again, it may fall back to the initial stage of key training, and even damage its foundation. However, even so, as long as the master tells it to do something, it will definitely do it. The unconscious spiritual plant is so obedient. With the power of 3 spiritual fruits, the spiritual power of the spiritual energy transformed from the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone that was forcibly purified by the thorny vines at the cost of the essence of Yimu in a short period of time, and Ling Pengyun mobilizing his own dantian spiritual power, he attacked the solid bottleneck of the 7th level of key training for half a day before finally breaking it. Once the realm was broken, Ling Pengyun's spiritual consciousness and spiritual power were greatly improved in the Zumi. The spiritual consciousness that could cover the surrounding area of 85 feet increased to 100 feet. If it weren't for the fact that the spiritual consciousness strength of 100 feet was the limit that a key training cultivator could reach, otherwise the spiritual consciousness strength of Ling Pengyun would not be limited to this breakthrough. If the spiritual consciousness strength wants to exceed 100 feet, the cultivator needs to break the bottleneck of key training and reach the foundation building realm. As for Ling Pengyun's spiritual power, because the Bishuiju he practiced is the key training chapter of the foundation building method Bihai Zhenjing, his spiritual power has always been much purer than that of ordinary cultivators. Although he has just broken through to the 7th level of key training, his spiritual strength is almost equivalent to that of an ordinary 8th level cultivator. Ling Pengyun used the remaining spiritual power in his body to expand the size of his dantian and his meridians, and then he opened his eyes with a worried look on his face. Having broken through the most difficult bottleneck in the key training period, Ling Pengyun was not happy at all. It was just because the price of this breakthrough was too high. Not only did it consume more than 400 spiritual stones, but it also hurt the foundation of his life spirit plant. In order to help Ling Pengyun break through, the thorny vines consumed nearly 50% of the Yu wood essence in his body, which quickly purified the spiritual energy in more than 400 spiritual stones in a short period of time and passed it into Ling Pengyun's body. Ling Pengyun's mind moved slightly, and he removed the thorn bushes that wrapped around his body, shrinking it to the original thumb size. Looking at the small piece of thorn vine in his hand, which was weak and had a state that had dropped back to the initial stage of key training, Ling Pengyun felt a little helpless, but also mixed with relief. Fortunately, the state of this thorn vine has not dropped, but the thorn vine has lost too much Yimu essence this time. According to the Yimu essence lost this time, it will take me at least 5 years to restore the lost Yimu essence. At this point, Ling Pengyun exhaled a turbid breath. Now that the foundation of my life spirit plant is damaged, I am afraid that I can only exert 70% of my own strength, and the speed of cultivation should also decrease. The spirit plant husband and the life spirit plant are of the same origin. If the life spirit plant is only slightly injured, it will not have much impact on Ling Pengyun as the owner. However, the injury to the thorn vine this time has reached the root and hurt the foundation. Ling Pengyun, the owner, naturally suffered some backlash. The world of immortal cultivation is changing rapidly. I may encounter a battle tomorrow. 5 years is too long to only be able to exert 70% of my combat power. 5 years of slow cultivation is even more uncomfortable. We have to search for spiritual objects that can restore the injuries of spiritual plants. According to the time, the Huaishu small meeting should be held at the beginning of next year. As one of the most important events in the Bailingman, such spiritual objects should appear. Ling Pengyun secretly made up his mind and placed the small piece of thorn vine in his hand on his chest again, then quickly closed his eyes and transferred spiritual power into it to warm the thorn vine to recover from its injuries. When it was night, he stopped, stood up, walked outside the cave, and absorbed the breath of moonlight. After returning to the cave, Ling Pengyun took out a set of spiritual materials for refining a round iron shield, a black flame refining furnace, and a burning wood as usual, and began to refine the weapon. Because of the breakthrough in cultivation today and the increase in spiritual consciousness, Ling Pengyun was much more relaxed this time, and he successfully refined this round iron shield. Ling Pengyun looked at the round iron shield that had just been refined with a happy face, and muttered to himself. Including this round iron shield, I have 11 round iron shields in my storage bag. I can refine at least 3 round iron shields with the remaining 10 spiritual materials for refining round iron shields. When the 9th great-grandfather comes to offer sacrifices at the end of the year, I will sell these 14 round iron shields to the family, and I can also earn some spiritual stones to prepare for the Huaishu meeting. The materials for refining the round iron shield in Ling Pengyun's hand were given to him by Ling Ruda last year. It was similar to a family subsidy. The round iron shield refined with this batch of spiritual materials belonged to Ling Pengyun himself. At night, Ling Pengyun did not practice the skills as usual, but continued to use his own spiritual power to warm the thorn vines to speed up its recovery. Now that he was injured by the thorny vines, his cultivation speed was greatly reduced. Instead of practicing, it would be better to heal the thorny vines as soon as possible. He did not take a first-grade low-grade spiritual fruit until his own spiritual power was exhausted from nurturing the thorny vines, and then he practiced the skills. Horizontal Ellipsis. Chapter 68, Small Profit at the End of the Year. Time flies, and before he knew it, several months had passed. At the beginning of December, Ling Rufin, the family elder who is responsible for delivering offerings, also came to Qingshi Mountain as usual. As soon as he jumped off the fairy crane, he noticed that Ling Pengyun, who had been waiting here for a long time, had an aura that was not weaker than that of Ling Pengyun, a veteran key training 7th level cultivator, but a little empty. Pengyun, have you broken through to the 7th level of key training? Ling Rufin said in surprise. 9 great-grandfather. Ling Pengyun greeted him first, and never thought of hiding. Only by showing his own advantages can he get the attention of the family, and then replied. A few days ago, relying on the spiritual power feedback from my life spirit plant when it entered the middle stage of key training, I broke through by chance. The information contained in this sentence is not small. Ling Rufin also heard another good news from it, and the smile on his face became even brighter. In this case, is your spirit plant also? Although Ling Rufin is not a spirit plant husband, as a member of the spirit plant family, he naturally knows the significance of the spirit plant husband's life spirit plant improvement. I have already comprehended the 2nd level of the spiritual plant's secret method long before. After my life spirit plant broke through, I am now a 1st level middle grade spiritual plant husband. Ling Pengyun said. Pengyun, you have given me a double surprise today. At the age of 20, you have the 7th level of key training and practice 200 arts. You have reached the 1st level middle grade spiritual plant and the 1st level low grade weapon refining. There are not many people in the clan who have achieved such achievements. Ling Rufin said happily. 9 great-grandfather, you are too kind. Ling Pengyun said modestly. This humble attitude also made Ling Rufin very satisfied, but in order to avoid Ling Pengyun's arrogance, he did not say more about it, but changed the subject. Since you have broken through to the late stage of key training, the offerings should also be increased to the amount of the late stage of key training. Pengyun, how many green bamboo swords and round iron shields have you refined in the past 6 months? As early as a year ago, the family elder Ling Ruda told Ling Rufin that Ling Pengyun was a seedling of the family's weapon refinement and that he was a 1st level lower grade weapon refiner. Since then, Ling Rufin, the elder of the family, has also carried the spiritual materials for refining for Ling Pengyun and brought back the magic weapons refined by Ling Pengyun to the family during the time when he sent offerings to Ling Pengyun. Over the years, the family still did not publicize the fact that Ling Pengyun had become a seedling of weapon refinement, and the family leaders were relatively tight-lipped. Not many people in the family knew that Ling Pengyun was a seedling of weapon refinement. Relying on the 100 pieces of Qingshi sword refining materials you gave me half a year ago, a total of 53 Qingshi swords were refined. As for the round iron shield, due to the low success rate of refining, only 14 pieces were refined. Ling Pengyun summoned a large number of magic tools from the storage bag on his waist and replied with a smile. Ling Rufin saw the large number of magic tools appearing in front of him, and a very bright smile suddenly appeared on his face. Not bad, not bad. Once these magic tools are transported to the family's Lingxiao pavilion in Huaishufang City, they will be enough to make a lot of spiritual stones. Pengyun, you have worked hard. Ling Rufin first praised Ling Pengyun, and then calculated in his mouth. For each of the 53 green bamboo swords, you earn 5 spiritual stones, which is 265 spiritual stones. The 7 round iron shields are your private property. However, due to the large quantity, the family will charge you for 45 spiritual stones, which makes a total of 630 spiritual stones, and a total of 895 spiritual stones. Because you have reached the late stage of key training due to your cultivation, and because you have doubled your offerings for guarding the outside world, The offerings for the next 6 months will become 84 spiritual stones, 120 kilograms of first-grade top-grade white jade spiritual rice, and 6 yellow bud pills and 12 key training pills that the family has given you as extra subsidies. In addition, this year's dividend of 400 spiritual stones from the Zhuangshu mine, the total spiritual stones you have earned is 1,379 spiritual stones. After calculating all this, Ling Rufin took out a storage bag from his arms and summoned a large number of spiritual stones, a large number of refining materials, and spiritual objects from it. Seeing the appearance of these spiritual stones, Ling Pengyun was also delighted. A few days ago, because of the breakthrough in cultivation, he had used up all the spiritual stones in his storage bag. Now with these thousands of spiritual stones, his storage bag is full again. After that, Ling Rufin and Ling Pengyun chatted for a while, and then went to the 6 acres of spiritual fields on the top of the mountain to get busy, using the spiritual sickle to cut the 2 acres of mature yellow jade spiritual rice on the top of the Qingshi Mountain, carefully pulling out a key training grass and sword star grass in the field, etc. All this farm work was done, and the sun was about to set. Pengyun, the harvest of the yellow jade spiritual rice you planted is getting more and more. The 2 acres of yellow jade spiritual rice have harvested 1,211 kilograms of spiritual rice and 1,208 kilograms of spiritual rice respectively. You can get 10%, which is 240 kilograms. Do you plan to keep these spiritual rice yourself or sell them to the family? Ling Rufin looked at the 2 piles of yellow jade spiritual rice on the ground that had shed their husks and looked like topaz, and smiled. Then he used the measurement technique to separate a small pile of spiritual rice and asked Ling Pengyun. As usual, sell it to the family. Ling Pengyun said. 240 kilograms of yellow jade spiritual rice, 5 kilograms of a spiritual stone, a total of 48 spiritual stones. Ling Rufin smiled and put 2 large piles and 1 small pile of spiritual rice on the ground into a special storage bag, and summoned 48 spiritual stones and handed them to Ling Pengyun. After chatting with Ling Pengyun for a few words, Ling Pengyun handed a letter to Ling Rufin and asked him to take it to the elder Ling Ruda. As usual, Ling Rufin collected the spiritual plants harvested from Qingshi Mountain this year before it got dark, and rode on the fairy crane and rushed to the spiritual mountain where his great-grandson Ling Pengchang was stationed dozens of miles away. After watching Ling Rufin leave, Ling Pengyun touched the bulging storage bag on his waist, and his thoughts flew to the sky. With these more than 1,400 spiritual stones, I will have enough spiritual stones to buy any spiritual objects that can restore spiritual plants, whether they appear in my family or at the Hua issue meeting. However, in the way of refining equipment, I still need to invest some spiritual stones myself to buy some refining materials and increase the success rate of refining equipment. Only in this way can I earn more spiritual stones to buy resources, feed back my own cultivation, and collect the 4,000 spiritual stones needed to buy the second-class foundation building spiritual objects with my family. Among the thousands of spiritual stones obtained this time, the largest income was the spiritual stones obtained by relying on the round iron shield. Having tasted the sweetness, Ling Pengyun naturally wanted to eat the big cake of refining equipment. Now his success rate in refining the round iron shield is only 30%, which can barely break even. But it is still too early to rely on refining the round iron shield to really make a profit. Although refining equipment can earn more spiritual stones, it is based on the high success rate of refining equipment. Just like after the success rate of refining the green bamboo sword is increased to 50%, you can earn spiritual stones without worry. Every time you successfully refine a sword, you can earn a lot of spiritual stones. After coming to his senses, Ling Pengyun calmed down, took out the spiritual hoe from the storage bag, walked into the 6 acres of spiritual field, used the spiritual hoe to plow the spiritual field, dug small pits in the spiritual field, and buried the 3 kinds of spiritual plant seeds that Ling Rufin had just given in the small pits. Because when using the spiritual hoe to plow the spiritual soil, you need to be careful to avoid the vibration force of the spiritual hoe being too strong to shake the spiritual energy in the spiritual soil, thereby causing the quality of the spiritual soil to deteriorate. This is the beginning, and it took a lot of time to plant the seeds. It took until nightfall before it was done. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 will be posted later. Hey guys, I have something to do, so I will post it later, at 4 p.m. The update time will be the same after that, at 2 p.m. Sorry. Chapter 70, Hua Issue Meeting. A few days later. At the end of the year, Ling Rufan, who had been harvesting mature spiritual plants from various low-level spiritual mountains in the Ling family's territory, had his storage bags full, so he returned to the family halfway and put the spiritual objects in his storage bags back to the family's general affairs hall. By the way, he gave the letter that Ling Pengyun had entrusted him to pass on to Ling Ruda, the manager of the general affairs hall and the family's elder. When Ling Ruda saw the content of the letter, his expression suddenly changed. He immediately left the general affairs hall, first went to the mountaintop clan library, and then looked for several elders in the clan who often went out of the family, but still did not gain anything. With a sad face, he rode on the fairy crane, left Lingxiao Mountain, and rushed to Qingshi Mountain where Ling Pengyun was stationed. As soon as he landed on Qingshi Mountain, Ling Ruda found Ling Pengyun who was sitting on the mountain and scolded him angrily. Pengyun, why are you so reckless? As a spiritual plant husband, don't you know the importance of your natal spiritual plant? The bottleneck of the 7th level of key training is known as the most difficult bottleneck in the key training period. How can it be said that spiritual plant husbands like us can use the spiritual power of our natal spiritual plants to break through the realm, which is a bit convenient, but we can't act so recklessly? When Ling Pengyun heard this, he immediately understood that Ling Ruda had read the letter he sent back to the family. He also knew that Ling Ruda's words were right and for his own good, so he didn't care about the reprimand, but felt warm in his heart. Ling Ruda saw that Ling Pengyun didn't speak, and sighed helplessly. Call out your thorn vines and let me see them. Ling Pengyun did as he was told, and called out the sickly, finger-length thorn vines attached to his chest, and handed them to Ling Ruda to see. After Ling Ruda took over the small piece of thorny vine, he probed his spiritual sense into it and looked at it carefully. It seemed that the vine was still under control, but it had lost a lot of wood essence. After using his spiritual sense to carefully check Ling Pengyun's body, he found that there was nothing serious, so he felt relieved. In the future, don't try to break through the bottleneck so forcefully. Fortunately, the thorn vines helped you this time, but the thorn vines were injured. If you force your way through, it will damage your meridians, which will be a big problem. Although there are many healing pills in the family treasury, there are no spiritual objects that can treat injuries to spiritual plants. I also asked some clan members, and they don't have any. This kind of spiritual objects for healing are already rare, and the family doesn't have many people outside. I'm afraid it will be difficult to find such spiritual objects in a short time. You can go to the Hua Issue meeting soon, and you may gain something. If there is nothing at the Hua Issue meeting, I will go to find the clan leader then. The clan leader has a wider network of contacts, and he should be able to find such spiritual objects, so that your thorn vine injury can be recovered quickly, so as not to affect the progress of your cultivation. I think so too. Ling Pengyun felt warm in his heart and nodded slightly. After that, the two chatted about spiritual plants, and Ling Ruda left Qingshi Mountain. After leaving Qingshi Mountain, Ling Ruda did not return to the family immediately, but went to the Zhuangshu iron vein at the bottom of Qingshi Lake, and found the second elder Ling Ruxin who was stationed there, and asked him to take Ling Pengyun to the Hua Issue meeting during the Hua Issue meeting to protect Ling Pengyun's safety. At the end of the year, December 30th, the penultimate day of the year. On this day, Ling Pengyun had already watered the 6 acres of spiritual fields on the top of Qingshi Mountain with spiritual rain. Facing the cold winter wind, he sat cross-legged beside the spiritual fields, looking at Qingshi Lake. Not long after, Ling Ruxin, who had been stationed at the Zhuangshu vein at the bottom of Qingshi Lake for many years, rushed out of the lake, first took out a formation plate, and activated the formation to protect the vein. A blue light curtain suddenly appeared, covering the entire Qingshi Lake. As soon as the magic circle was opened, Ling Ruxin also summoned the fairy crane, rode the crane to leave Qingshi Lake, and flew to Qingshi Mountain. Ling Pengyun, who had been waiting for Ling Ruxin for a long time, saw Ling Ruxin finally arrived, and immediately stood up and greeted him with a bow. 13th great-grandfather. Ling Ruxin nodded lightly and said, Pengyun, today is the second day of the Hua Issue small meeting. We should also leave to avoid missing the auction with the most spiritual objects gathered in the Hua Issue small meeting. Okay. Ling Pengyun had been waiting for this for more than a day. As early as several months ago, the two had agreed to go to Huaishu Market together. After answering, he took out the array plate of the Qingshi Mountain's Mountain Protection Magic Circle Wu Tu Liangai array and more than 10 spiritual stones, and used the power of the spiritual stones to open the array. A huge earth yellow light curtain, between Zumi, enveloped the entire Qingshi Mountain. Qingshi Mountain was protected by the array, so Ling Pengyun could have no worries during his absence. Afterwards, Ling Pengyun and Ling Ruxin rode on the late key training fairy crane and flew away from Qingshi Mountain to the Fruit Bee Ridge where Ling Pengyun was stationed dozens of miles away. Although there was a first-level low-grade spiritual vein in Fruit Bee Ridge, it was located in the mountains and was full of potholes or rocks, which was not suitable for cultivating farmland. Therefore, the Ling family did not move mortals to this Fruit Bee Ridge to build a village. So far, only Ling Pengyun was guarding the spiritual vein on Fruit Bee Ridge, and taking care of the 2 acres of spiritual fields and the spiritual orange tree developed on the spiritual vein. The spiritual objects planted on the 2 acres of spiritual fields were all topaz spiritual rice. The topaz spiritual rice contained a lot of spiritual energy and could be sold at a very high price on the market. Ling Ruxin and Ling Pengyun rode on the fairy crane and landed outside the hut next to the 2 acres of spiritual fields in Fruit Bee Ridge, and greeted Ling Pengyun who was sitting at the door of the hut. "Pengyun, have you packed?" "I've packed a long time ago. I've been waiting for you to pick me up." Ling Pengyun stood up and said excitedly, "Come on up." Ling Ruxin smiled and called Ling Pengyun to get on the fairy crane. Although the fairy crane is not big, it can still carry 3 people. The 3 of them took the fairy crane and flew to Huaishufang City together. Huaishufang City is located in the southern part of Huaishu County. It is the closest human settlement to the Jiamang Lake in the entire Huaishu County. It is also the first line of defense for Huaishu County and even the entire Balingman territory, facing the countless monsters in Jiamang Lake. This Huaishufang City was built by Balingman on a second-level upper-grade spiritual vein. A third-level lower-grade formation was arranged inside it. It was guarded by Balingman's third-level formation master and Jindan stage strongman spiritual array true man all year round to prevent monsters from Jiamang Lake from attacking this market during normal times. Since the Huaishu County was captured from the monsters and the county city was established in the 3rd year, after the situation in Huaishu County stabilized, Balingman held a grand auction in Huaishu Market, also known as the Huaishu Small Meeting. The original intention of this Huaishu Small Meeting was very simple, which was to attract cultivators to trade, increase the tax revenue of Huaishu Market, earn more profits, and make up for the spiritual materials consumed by the 3rd-level formation when the Huaishu Market was established. 5 years ago, at the first Huaishu Small Meeting, the Balingman, the manager of the market, put a full 5 foundation building pills and 20 sets of this second-class foundation building spiritual object Balingshu at the auction in order to make a name for themselves, attracting cultivators from the Balingman territory and even other giant and major territories to compete for these foundation building spiritual objects. With the help of these people, the newly established Huaishu Small Meeting also became prosperous in a short period of time. Night fell, under the stars. Like Immortal City, the Huaishu Market, with its 4 walls more than 10 feet high, was still bustling with people, and the streets were filled with people and brightly lit. The 4 gates of the market, east, west, south, and north, were even more crowded with people, and long queues formed in each. A white light slid across the sky and landed outside the east gate of the market. This white light was a beautiful fairy crane. On its back were Ling Pengyun, Ling Ruxin, and Ling Pengyun, who had left Qingshi Mountain in the early morning. Ling Pengyun came to the Huaishu Market for the first time. He had heard about the prosperity of the Huaishu Market, which was built by the Baling sect. However, he saw the 4 tall walls of the market and the long queues of monks at the entrance of the east gate, and he couldn't help but show a touch of excitement in his heart. In order to prepare for this day, he prepared 1,427 spiritual stones and planned to spend them. This consumption was naturally not random, and Ling Pengyun had an idea. First, find a special spiritual object that can restore the essence of Yimu that was lost by the thorny vines. Second, find flying monster eggs. Third, buy refining materials. Fourth, buy some first-grade high-quality spiritual fruits that are rare even in the family. Chapter 71 Yang Xiling. On the fairy crane, Ling Ruxin, who is usually not good at speaking, turned his head and gave detailed instructions to the two juniors Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun. Pengyun, get off the fairy crane. This Huaishu market has a lot of people because of the Huaishu small meeting. There are all kinds of people. After entering the market, I will go to Lingxiao Pavilion first. You two can stroll around by yourselves, but you need to be careful and save some spiritual stones. Before the early morning auction starts, hurry back to Lingxiao Pavilion opened by the family. I will take you to there. There are many good things at the auction held by the Jainan sect like Balingman. Understood, 13th great-grandfather. Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun said almost in unison. Well, get off the fairy crane. Ling Ruxin called out and jumped off the fairy crane first. Ling Pengyun and the other person followed closely and jumped off the fairy crane. The three of them came to the crowd queuing at the East City Gate and lined up. For example, in the large trade fairs in Fangxi, cultivators are not allowed to fly. Unless they are foundation-building cultivators, they have to line up obediently. Otherwise, they will be killed by the cultivators stationed in Fangxi or by the formations in Fangxi. There were too many people in the queue to enter Fangxi. After waiting for nearly half an hour, Ling Pengyun slowly moved forward and came to the entrance of the East Gate. Two key training cultivators, wearing the Taoist robes of Baling sect and with a strong aura, were guarding in front of the gate. One cultivator was responsible for collecting spirit stones, and the other cultivator held a bronze mirror in his hand. Whenever a cultivator wanted to enter the city, this person would take a look in the bronze mirror. Ling Pengyun was quite familiar with this bronze mirror. This bronze mirror was called Zhaomojing. It was a first-level magic weapon that could detect the disguise of any key training demon cultivator. This was also to prevent demon cultivators from entering Fangxi and causing chaos. As for demon cultivators above the foundation building stage, Baling sect would have other ways to detect them. Ling Pengyun wanted to enter Fangxi, and was naturally no exception. He was photographed by Zhaomojing. When the demon realm shone on Ling Pengyun, there was no reaction. Pay a spirit stone as an entrance fee, and you can enter. The monk of Baling sect holding the demon realm glanced at Ling Pengyun and said without emotion, "Unlike the small market, one has to pay a spirit stone to enter a large trading place like the Fangxi. If you want to enter again in the future, you still have to pay a spirit stone. This is the rule of every Fangxi." Ling Pengyun handed in a spirit stone honestly and was naturally allowed to pass through the entrance of the East City Gate and entered the Fangxi. The avenue in the Fangxi is relatively spacious, and even if there are many people, it does not seem crowded. While waiting for Ling Ruxin and others to enter the Fangxi, a bird's cry came from the sky, attracting the attention of many monks in the Fangxi. Not long after, a bird with earthy yellow feathers rushed out from a cloud and landed directly on the wall of the East City Gate. During this period, the disciples of Baling sect who were patrolling on the wall did not obstruct it. On the contrary, because there were many people at the Huaishu meeting, the foundation-building monk Chendong, who was sent by Balingman to sit on the East City wall, went to meet the yellow-haired pengbird. Ling Pengyun, who had been paying attention to this scene, was shocked by the pressure of foundation building from the yellow-haired pengbird. The person who can ride that pengbird in the foundation building period must be a powerful person. On the East City wall, two people jumped off the yellow-haired pengbird. One of them had clear eyebrows and handsome features. He was also wearing the sect robe of Balingman. He exuded the powerful pressure of a foundation building master. Even if he didn't deliberately stimulate it, it was very obvious. The other person was a woman. This woman was tall, with extremely delicate features and skin as white as snow. Although she was wearing a loose green Taoist robe, it was still difficult to hide her excellent figure. This beautiful woman also exuded a foundation building pressure. Seeing the woman's face, Ling Pengyun under the city wall felt as if she was familiar. The next moment, he was extremely shocked. He was not attracted by the beauty of the woman, but he knew her and they were close friends. Ling Pengyun said happily, "Cousin Xiling has actually advanced to the foundation building stage? Why is my cousin here?" The beautiful woman on the city wall was named Yang Xiling. She was the eldest of the 4 generations of Chang, Yun, Chu, Si in the Yang family of Qingshi Mountain, Yunchu County, a relative of the Ling family. She was also the daughter of Yang Qiujiang, the brother of Ling Pengyun's mother Yang Qiuyan. When Ling Pengyun was still a small key training family that depended on the foundation building family Yang family for survival, Ling Pengyun often played and practiced with his cousin. But later, when Ling Pengyun was 10 years old, Yang Xiling was sent to the Bailing sect by the Yang family. After that, it was only when she was 13 years old that Yang Xiling returned to the Yang family to pay tribute when Ling Pengyun's grandmother died, and they met once. At that time, Yang Xiling, because she had dual spiritual roots and outstanding cultivation talent, had reached the 9th level of key training. She was accepted as a disciple by a female cultivator at the foundation building stage in Bailing sect. She was highly regarded by her master and became wealthy. After returning home, she gave a lot of good things to Ling Pengyun, her cousin with whom she had a very good relationship. As for why such a genius was sent to Bailing sect by the Yang family, it was also because of the explosion of talents in the Yang family. In the generation of the Yang family with the surname Si alone, there was a person with a stronger talent than Yang Xiling. In order to avoid delaying Yang Xiling's foundation building, she was sent to Bailing sect. That handsome man can own a foundation building pang bird, and he doesn't look very old. He has foundation building cultivation himself, and he is also a member of Bailing sect. I guess he has a great background. Looking at cousin Xiling riding on a pengbird with him, I'm afraid they are related. The back of the yellow-haired pengbird in the foundation building stage is not big. A man and a woman riding together, unless they are relatives or Taoist partners, how could a woman be in a small space with a man casually? On the east wall, Chen Dong, who was stationed on the east wall, walked quickly to the side of the yellow-haired rock bird and greeted the man and woman who jumped off the rock bird with a little respect, as if the man and woman were of higher status. Junior brother Wu, junior sister Yang, I didn't expect you two to come too. This place is very far from Bailing Gate. Did you encounter any danger on the way? The handsome man smiled. Brother Chen, thank you for your concern. Chen Dong nodded lightly, without saying much, took out a small book from the storage bag, handed it to the handsome man, and asked him to register. After the handsome man registered, he took Yang Xiling back to the yellow-haired rock bird and flew into the market. Chen Dong, who was still standing on the wall, looked at Yang Xiling on the yellow-haired rock bird with a slightly envious look, and muttered to himself, Junior sister Yang is really lucky. Not only did she become a disciple of senior sister Zhao, a powerful master who has completed the foundation building, but she also got in touch with junior brother Wu. I'm afraid the Yang family behind junior sister Yang will have no worries about prosperity in the future. Chapter 72 Sunhua Chicken Eggs. Mina, what are you looking at? Just when Ling Pengyun was distracted, a voice came from behind him. Ling Pengyun turned his head and found that it was Ling Pengyun who called him. He smiled and said, I didn't see anything. Okay, let's go. When I was queuing to enter the market, my 13th great-grandfather asked me to enter the market and meet you, and then I can leave first. Ling Pengyun didn't care and started to talk. Okay. Ling Pengyun responded, and took Ling Pengyun, his sister, along the East Avenue, towards the depths of the market. On both sides of the East Avenue of the market are two-story attics and shops, and the goods sold in them are all spiritual objects used by cultivators, such as talismans, elixirs, Taoist robes, spiritual clothes, magic tools. There are all kinds of spiritual objects, and even talismans. Ling Pengyun only took a light glance and saw at least 20 types. From time to time, the greetings of the waiters of various shops came to my ears. Dear fellow Taoists, please don't miss it if you pass by. This is a century-old talisman shop. The quality of the talismans in the shop is guaranteed. We never cheat anyone, and we will compensate you 10 times for fake ones. We have all kinds of first-grade elixirs made by the alchemists of Bailing sect. As long as you can think of it, our shop has it. We have Taoist robes of various models and grades, as well as spiritual clothes worn by fairies. We can also customize them. We have an equipment refiner in our shop. For customized Taoist robes and spiritual clothes, you only need to provide the materials, and they will be delivered within 3 days. Don't miss it, fairies passing by. A nice set of spiritual clothes can enhance your beauty. These shouts did play a significant role. Many monks who passed by these shops would turn around and go to those shops to look for the spiritual objects they liked after hearing the shouts of the waiters. Ling Pengyun, a young girl who loves beauty, is one of them. When she heard a waiter outside a shop selling spiritual clothes and Taoist robes on the roadside praising spiritual clothes, she was immediately moved. Mina, I want to buy a spiritual dress. Ling Pengyun looked at a spiritual clothing shop not far away. Her face was moved, her cheeks slightly red, and she said to Ling Pengyun. When Ling Pengyun heard this, He looked at the first-level low-grade basic Taoist robe on his body, which only came with a clear dust technique and was distributed by the family. His expression moved slightly and he said, "I just want to buy a first-level middle-grade Taoist robe. Let's go together." Ling Pengyun's face suddenly lit up, and she took Ling Pengyun into a shop called Dantian clothing shop not far from the roadside. Although this shop is not big, it is indeed, as the waiter outside the shop shouted. It does have all kinds of Taoist robes and spiritual clothes, Taoist robes on the left and spiritual dresses on the right. As soon as Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun entered the store, they each began to choose the robes and spiritual clothes they liked. Ling Pengyun was quick in choosing the robes, and soon he had chosen a first-grade middle-grade robe. Because this robe used more materials and was engraved with 2 spiritual patterns of water shield and light body, the price was higher than that of ordinary first-grade middle-grade magic tools, so he bought it for 110 spiritual stones. As long as this robe is injected with spiritual power, it is like performing the light body technique, and it will not conflict with the light body technique that the cultivator has cast on his body. With this robe, it is equivalent to having 2 light body techniques on the body, which is enough to increase Ling Pengyun's speed from 1,000 miles a day to about 2,000 miles a day, and sometimes it has a miraculous effect. In addition, you can rely on this robe to instantly activate a water shield to resist the enemy. It is a good robe. Ling Pengyun, on the other hand, was like deep in the sea of flowers, unable to extricate himself. The spiritual dresses in the store were like flowers, and she wanted to collect them all. She entered a special changing room in the store. After changing, she admired them in front of a large mirror in the store, and then she would find Ling Pengyun and ask if the spiritual dress was good-looking. Ling Pengyun naturally said that it was good-looking. But Ling Pengyun didn't believe it. She would look at it in front of the large mirror in the store for a long time, every time. Until she found a flaw in the spiritual dress, she would change it and choose again. After trying more than 10 spiritual dresses in a row, Ling Pengyun finally fell in love with a white classical, one-piece spiritual dress. This one-piece spiritual dress is indeed very consistent with the special temperament of Ling Pengyun, a formation master. The combination of the two adds a bit of beauty to Ling Pengyun. Ling Pengyun happily took the simple spiritual dress in her hand, walked to the counter, and asked a beautifully dressed female manager at the counter the price. "How much spiritual stones is this spiritual dress?" 45 spiritual stones. The female manager smiled. Hearing such a high price, Ling Pengyun's smile suddenly fell, and he said unhappily, "Although this spiritual skirt is beautiful, the price is not so high. Don't get me wrong, sir. This spiritual skirt is made of ice silk. Wearing it, you won't feel hot even in the hot summer. There is also an ice spiritual pattern engraved on the spiritual skirt. As long as you inject spiritual power into this spiritual skirt, you can instantly activate the ice spiritual pattern and summon an ice cone to meet the enemy. However, it takes half a day to accumulate spiritual energy to use it once." The female manager explained with a smile. Ling Pengyun looked at the white spiritual skirt in his hand, which was very much in his heart, and thought about the spell attached to the spiritual skirt. He gritted his teeth and waved a small pile of spiritual stones from his storage bag. "Okay, 45 is 45. Generally, shops like those in the market rarely reduce prices. Unless the purchase volume is large, the price is what it is." After Ling Pengyun paid the spiritual stones, she suggested, "Mina, I heard that the biggest attraction during the Huaishu fair is the stall area and the auction. Let's go to the stall area to have a look." Ling Pengyun frowned slightly, but seeing Ling Pengyun's expectant eyes, Ling Pengyun couldn't bear to refuse, and nodded in agreement. A quarter of an hour later, the two followed the avenue and came to a huge square. On this square, there were small stalls, and the stalls were all set up by monks. This square is the stall area of the Huaishu market. There is no need to hand in spiritual stones to set up a stall here, but you must set up a stall in a planned place. If you set up a stall when you see an empty space, you will be punished by the patrol team composed of Balingman disciples in the market. There are all kinds of goods on the stalls in this stall area, and there are even many strange spiritual objects that Ling Pengyun doesn't recognize. At this time, Ling Pengyun glanced at a stall at his feet, and saw 3 fist-sized spiritual eggs with brown flower patterns on the eggshells, and said, "Songhua spirit chicken eggs. Songhua spirit chicken eggs are laid by a species called Songhua spirit chicken. Songhua spirit chickens can also be grated, with delicious meat, and are most suitable for making soup." When Ling Pengyun was young, He often drank the chicken soup made by his mother with Sunhua chicken. Looking at these 3 Sunhua chicken eggs, Ling Pengyun was somewhat nostalgic. He had not seen his parents for 8 years. It is Sunhua spirit chicken eggs. As long as Taoist friends wait for some time, these eggs are enough to hatch into first-grade Sunhua spirit chickens. A soft voice of a woman came from the stall owner's mouth. Ling Pengyun looked up and saw the face of the stall owner. The stall owner was a young woman in her 20s, wearing a red Taoist robe with a small tiger pattern embroidered on the cuffs. Tiger roar Liu. Ling Pengyun looked at the pattern on the cuffs of the female stall owner and wondered. I am indeed from the Lingxiao Liu clan, and you two are from the Lingxiao Ling clan, right? The female stall owner was not surprised by what Ling Pengyun said, and said with a smile. Since we are all from Huaishu County, if the 3 of you buy all the Sunhua eggs on my stall, I can sell them to you for 14 spirit stones, giving you a discount of 1 spirit stone. On the market, a Sunhua egg is sold for 5 spirit stones. Ling Pengyun did not rush to answer. His spiritual sense scanned the inside of the 3 Sunhua eggs on the stall until he found nothing abnormal about them. Then he patted the storage bag on his waist, took out 14 spirit stones from it, handed them to the female stall owner, and said, Okay. The Liu family female stall owner handed over the spirit stones, and her face was happy. Thinking of a brother of hers who also had a few Sunhua eggs waiting to be sold, she quickly recommended them. Fellow Taoist, you are really generous. Do you need Sunhua eggs? My clan brother has a few Sunhua eggs. Sure, I'll take them all, but I have something to ask Fairy Liu. Your Tiger Roar Liu clan is famous for taming beasts. Do you or your clan have any good flying monster eggs for sale? If so, the price can be negotiated. Ling Pengyun nodded, his expression slightly changed, and asked. The female stall owner of the Liu clan was delighted. Although she was quite interested in Ling Pengyun's request to buy flying monsters, she shook her head and replied. Fellow Taoist Ling, you think too highly of me. Although my Liu family is a family of beast tamers, most of the cultivators in our clan will tame monster eggs with better qualifications or young monsters, not to mention the eggs of flying monsters. But in consideration of your purchase of my 3 pine eggs, I can tell you a piece of information. There will be several monster eggs for sale at the Huaishu auction, including one of flying monster eggs. You can try it at the auction. Thank you for the reminder, Fairy. Ling Pengyun was delighted. He first thanked him and then asked. Fairy Liu, how did you know about the spiritual objects that will be auctioned at the auction? It doesn't matter. Judging from what you said, it should be your first time to come to this auction. As early as a month before the Huaishu small meeting, some precious spiritual objects at the Huaishu auction were intentionally spread. 2 days ago, when the Huaishu small meeting just started, the auction printed all the ordinary spiritual objects to be auctioned, except for the final spiritual objects, on the promotional poster and distributed them to everyone for free to attract visitors. This is the promotional poster of the auction, and it is given to you. The female stall owner of the Liu family waved her hand and took out a colorful promotional poster from the storage bag. Seeing that Ling Pengyun bought several spiritual eggs, she said a few more words. After Ling Pengyun took the promotional poster of the auction, he began to look at it carefully. Just a single glance made Ling Pengyun dazzled. There were hundreds of spiritual objects on the promotional poster, all of which were spiritual objects to be auctioned at this auction. After observing for a while, he finally found several monster eggs among the many auction items. The most valuable one was the flying monster egg mentioned by the female stall owner Liu. There was a detailed record of this monster egg. Ling Pengyun looked at the introduction of the monster egg, and his eyes suddenly became hot. The female stall owner Liu noticed the change in Ling Pengyun's expression slightly, and had a bad premonition in her heart, muttering to herself. Looking at the appearance of this Ling family cultivator, I'm afraid he is very eager for the flying monster egg. I don't know if this person's appearance will make it more difficult for my brother to bid for the flying monster egg. After Ling Pengyun saw the monster egg on the promotional picture, he didn't hesitate to put the promotional picture into the storage. Then he raised his head and bowed to thank him again. Fairy Liu, thank you very much. You're welcome. If you really want to thank me, then buy a few more Sunhua eggs from my brother. The Liu family female stall owner smiled, and after saying this, she waved her hand and patted the beast bag on her waist, summoned a red bird from it, and ordered the bird. Go and bring my third brother here for me. Okay, master. The red bird responded with human language. Ling Pengyun, who saw this scene, looked a little envious and asked, "Excuse me, Fairy Liu, is that redbird your Liu family's unique communication parrot?" Under normal circumstances, only monsters that break through to the golden elixir realm can speak human language. Of course there are exceptions. That's right. The Liu family female stall owner replied with a smile with a bit of pride. Although the messenger parrot is also a spiritual beast, its highest rank can only be upgraded to the first grade lower grade, but this messenger parrot has two abilities. One is that it has good endurance and can fly for several days in a row. The other is that it can remember what others say and can also speak human language. Chapter 73 Wu Yan's brother-in-law? It is precisely because of these two advantages that this parrot can perfectly replace the expensive parrot. However, this parrot is a unique item of the Liu family, a family of beast tamers. It is said that it was created by a genius beast tamer in the early years of the Liu family, who used a special secret method to cross two different bird monsters. Does the fairy have any extra parrots? I want to buy one. Ling Pengyun naturally wanted this kind of spiritual beast, so he asked. No, if you want to buy it, you can go to the Tiger Roaring Beast House opened by my Liu family in the Huaishu market. There are many parrots in the store. The female stall owner of the Liu family shook her head. Ling Pengyun heard this and nodded lightly, and did not say anything more. Not long after, an honest-looking man in his 20s trotted after the parrot of the female stall owner of the Liu family and came to Ling Pengyun and others. "Eighth sister, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting for a long time," the honest man said with an apologetic look, looking at Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun. "Third brother, this is the fellow Taoist Ling who will buy Sunhua eggs that I mentioned." The Liu family female stall owner pointed at Ling Pengyun and introduced to the honest man beside her. "Fellow Taoist Ling, I have more Sunhua eggs here, 6 in total. If you are willing to buy them all, I am willing to sell them to you at a discount of 2 spiritual stones, 28 spiritual stones." The honest man summoned 6 Sunhua eggs from the beast-controlling bag on his waist that could store goods and handed them to Ling Pengyun. Okay. Ling Pengyun still looked at the quality of these 6 Sunhua eggs and saw that the quality was no different, so he replied. "Do you have any extra beast-controlling bags? If you do, can you sell them to me, so that I can also store these 9 Sunhua eggs? Sunhua eggs contain life. If they are directly stored in the storage bag, the Sunhua eggs will be useless and difficult to hatch into chickens. Only the beast-controlling bag, a spatial spiritual object, can earn Sunhua eggs that contain life. I just happen to have an extra beast-controlling bag, but the space inside is only half a square meter, and it has been used for many years. If you don't mind, I can sell it to you at 70% of the price of a brand new beast-controlling bag on the market." The honest Liu male cultivator took out a small yellow bag from his arms and handed it to Ling Pengyun. Ling Pengyun looked at the yellow beast-controlling bag in front of him. Except for the old appearance, the space inside was not damaged, and there was no difference from a brand new one. "It's not damaged, and the price is right. I'll buy it." 6 Sunhua eggs cost 28 spirit stones, and a second-hand beast-controlling bag cost 35 spirit stones. The market price of a half-square beast-controlling bag is 50 spirit stones, which is 20 spirit stones more expensive than an ordinary first-level low-grade attack magic weapon. After paying the spirit stones, Ling Pengyun put the 9 Sunhua eggs he bought this time into the beast-controlling bag he had just obtained, and then took Ling Pengyun and Ling Rooks into the depths of the stall. "Mina, why did you buy so many Sunhua eggs? It takes at least a year to hatch Sunhua eggs, and it takes about 3 years to raise them." After walking for a while, Ling Pengyun asked curiously. "I want to raise them and leave them for your second aunt to make soup," Ling Pengyun said with a smile. Ling Pengyun's father Ling Xiaoshan was the second in the Xiao generation. Ling Pengyun's mother joined the Ling family and was naturally Ling Pengyun's second aunt. "Mina, you are so thoughtful. Why don't you give me 2 and I can raise 2 to make soup for my grandmother?" Ling Pengyun suggested with his eyes wide open. Ling Pengyun joked. "Of course, these 2 Sunhua eggs will be given to you directly. It can be regarded as my early birthday gift to you for your 18th birthday this year." "Thank you, Mina." Ling Pengyun took the 2 Sunhua eggs handed to him, very happy, and smiled and thanked the generous brother in front of him. After that, the 3 of them were strolling around the stalls. Only Ling Pengyun saw a first-level medium-grade seal-shaped magic weapon at a stall of a casual cultivator. After a lot of bargaining by Ling Pengyun, he bought it for 83 spiritual stones. As for Ling Pengyun, Although he saw some spiritual objects he liked at many stalls in the stalls, he did not buy them because he planned to bid for the flying monster egg he saw in the auction promotional picture at the auction, so he saved spiritual stones. Time passed gradually, and Ling Pengyun and the other person also visited the stalls. Just as the two were about to go to the Lingxiao treasure pavilion opened by the family to meet up with Ling Ruxin, a surprised voice came from behind Ling Pengyun. Cousin Pengyun. Before Ling Pengyun could react, a young man in a green Taoist robe trotted to Ling Pengyun. When Ling Pengyun saw the young man, his face lit up, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face, and he shouted, "Cousin Sidan, why are you here too?" The boy's name is Yang Sidan, the son of the older brother of Ling Pengyun's mother Yang Qiuyan, and the younger brother of Yang Xiling. I came here with my parents, my grandfather, and my sister too. They are all in the Pengyun alchemy hall opened by my Pengyun Yang family. I came out to have a look. Yang Sidan replied with a smile, and then greeted Ling Pengyun who was beside Ling Pengyun. "Hello, Cousin Pengyun. A few years ago, the Ling family was originally a small key training family affiliated with the Pengyun Yang family. In addition, they were originally in-laws. Except for some new faces, the two families basically knew each other, but some of them were close, and some were just nodding acquaintances. Cousin Sidan, I haven't seen you for a few years, but you are getting more and more handsome. When you grow up, you will definitely charm many fairies." Ling Pengyun glanced at Yang Sidan's appearance and was shocked. He was also familiar with Yang Sidan, so he joked. Yang Sidan was only 15 years old, and his hair had not yet grown. Hearing Ling Pengyun's words, his face was a little thin, and his cheeks were slightly red. He said shyly, "Cousin Pengyun, please don't make fun of me." Ling Pengyun also recalled and said, "Tonight, when I just came to the market, I saw Cousin Xiling, but my cousin rode a rock bird into the market with a foundation building senior, so we didn't have time to meet." Yang Sidan smiled proudly when he heard it. "That's her brother-in-law, his surname is Wu and his name is Yan. This time, brother-in-law Wu Yan came back from Bailingmen with my sister to discuss marriage with our parents." Although Ling Pengyun had some guesses about the relationship between the handsome foundation building expert and his cousin Yang Xiling, he didn't expect that the two of them would reach this point. "It's so sudden, why haven't I heard about this before?" Ling Pengyun asked in confusion. Marriages in these big families can't be rushed, and all aspects must be considered. According to the relationship between his family and Yang Xiling's parents, he, the cousin, would have heard the news anyway. Now that a marriage has suddenly come, it is natural that he feels very strange. Yang Sidan replied with a smile. "It's not sudden. My brother-in-law and sister fell in love several years ago, but because of my brother-in-law's special identity, it is not convenient to disclose it, so it has not been spread. My aunt and uncle in Yunshifang City know about it, but they didn't tell you." The aunt and uncle he mentioned are Ling Pengyun's parents. Ling Pengyun was even more confused after hearing this. Even if that brother-in-law Wu Yan is a foundation-building cultivator, your Yang family is not weak either. Why do you need to hide it like this? The Pengyun Yang family where Yang Sidan is from is an old foundation-building family. There are as many as 3 foundation-building cultivators in the family, and there are more than 200 key training people. Although Wu Yan is a foundation-building cultivator from an outsider, he is not too special in front of the huge Yang family. Yang Sidan smiled and said mysteriously, "Cousin, you will know when the auction is held." Ling Pengyun was even more confused. How could the auction be related to Wu Yan? This auction was held by Bailingmen, and Wu Yan's brother-in-law is also a member of Bailingmen. Could it be that Wu Yan's brother-in-law is a high-ranking member of Bailingmen? Ling Pengyun guessed secretly. As soon as the idea came out, Ling Pengyun was immediately certain. Only in this way, Wu Yan and my cousin need to hide me. I think Wu Yan's brother-in-law did this because he was afraid that the marriage with my cousin would not be successful, and my cousin's family Yang would use Wu Yan's name to do things. Just as Ling Pengyun was distracted, Ling Pengyun touched his stomach and spoke. "My dear, Cousin Sidan, why don't we find a place to eat? I haven't eaten for 2 meals. I'm really hungry." Qigong cultivators cannot practice fasting. Like ordinary people, they need to eat. Yang Sidan was happy to hear this. "This is a good idea, cousin. I haven't seen you for a long time. This time I got a lot of good things from brother-in-law Wu Yan. I'll treat you to a meal at Wanfilao." After saying this, he took Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun to Wanfilao. Chapter 74 Spiritual Food. Wanfulao is a restaurant with several spiritual chefs working in the restaurant all year round. It is said that the boss behind this restaurant is a second-level spiritual chef in the foundation building period from Balingman. Because the dishes in the restaurant are cooked by spiritual chefs and are spiritual food that has miraculous effects on cultivators, this restaurant is also famous in the entire Huishufang city. As soon as Ling Pengyun and the other two stepped into Wanfulao, they smelled an alluring aroma of food. A quick glance showed that the first floor of Wanfulao was extremely popular, with seats full of people and no empty seats. Cousin Sidon, there are too many people in Wanfulao. Why don't we just find a restaurant to eat? Ling Pengyun suggested. There must be empty seats on the second floor. At noon today, my parents and I came to this restaurant and ordered a few ordinary dishes, but they were particularly delicious. The dishes in other places are not as delicious as this one. Yang Sidon waved his hand. But the second floor is a quiet room, and it costs extra. Let's forget it. Ling Pengyun said helplessly. Yang Sidon said generously. Cousin, why are you being so polite to me? We haven't seen each other for more than 4 years. Let's go to the second floor to eat. Seeing this, Ling Pengyun had no choice but to stop talking. At this time, a servant in a green shirt came up quickly and smiled. 3 Taoist friends, are you here to eat? Yang Sidon, who was in the lead, nodded. Yes, take us to the second floor and find us an empty table. Upon hearing this, the servant smiled even more and led everyone to the second floor. The second floor was different from the noisy first floor. Although the second floor was also like the first floor, there were dining tables in a spacious place, but there were soundproofing restrictions around these dining tables. This also made it so that although there were many people chatting on the entire second floor, there was not much sound, and the sound was blocked by the soundproofing restrictions on each dining table. After the 3 of them sat down at a dining table, Yang Sidon began to order dishes. Give us a pot of Xiangxiangling wine, a Wanfu chicken soup, braised yuling shrimp, steamed kangling fish, and a Qinggayu cabbage. 3 dishes and 1 soup are just right. Dao I really know what's good. The first 3 dishes are the specialties of my Wanfulao. 3 distinguished guests, please wait. The servant smiled and said, then quickly left. Ling Pengyun saw the servant's smiling face and thought to himself. The price of these dishes is probably not low. Although he thought so, he did not say more about it. He knew that Yang Sidon, who had been friends with him since childhood, really wanted to have a meal with him. It was hard to refuse such a kind invitation, and it would be a bit boring to say more. Sitting at the table, the 3 of them started chatting before all the dishes were served. Yang Sidon thought of something, looked at Ling Pengyun curiously, and asked, Cousin Pengyun, I heard some time ago that you are already a formation master. Is that true? Ling Pengyun answered modestly, then thought of something and asked. It's just luck. You are only 15 years old, but you are already the most profitable alchemist among all arts. I envy you very much. Do you have any key training pills? Can you sell some to your sister at a lower price? Yang Sidon showed a high talent for alchemy when he entered the key training period at the age of 10. He was listed as a potential alchemist by the Yang family, which relies on alchemy. 2 years ago, he became a first-class lower-grade alchemist. The Yang family did not hide this. They were related to the Ling family by marriage. During the New Year's visit, an elder of the Ling family brought back the reputation of Yang Sidon, the little alchemy genius of the Yang family. Yang Sidon got a lot of benefits from Wu Yan today, so he was very generous to give Ling Pengyun a discount. Of course, I have some on me, all prepared for this Hua issue meeting. If you need a lot, I can sell you 18 spirit stones for every 10 key training pills, which is 2 spirit stones cheaper. Cousin, this price is cheap, isn't it? This price is indeed cheap. Thank you, cousin. Ling Pengyun was delighted when he heard the price and thanked him. Ling Pengyun asked for 10 key training pills and traded with Yang Sidon. During this period, the servant who had just left also came with a tray to serve the dishes. The 3 of them talked and chatted. They were not much different in age and had many common topics. They were relatives by marriage and were not very old. They had not been deeply involved in the world of immortal cultivation, so the family relationship between them was very clean. They chatted for nearly an hour before they finished a meal. Yang Sidon paid for this meal alone, but when paying the spirit stones, Ling Pengyun was also shocked by the price of the 3 dishes and 1 soup he had just eaten. This meal cost a total of 40 spirit stones. After the shock, Ling Pengyun felt that the spiritual stones were worth spending, but Ling Pengyun, who had never been so generous since childhood, was more or less reluctant to spend. The 3 dishes and 1 soup that had just been eaten were all cooked by the spiritual chef with ingredients containing spiritual energy. Once eaten, these spiritual food dishes turned into pure spiritual power. Just by gently mobilizing the spiritual consciousness, they could be sent to the dantian to improve the cultivation. Eating this meal was equivalent to Ling Pengyun's usual 10 days of hard practice using spiritual fruits. Ling Pengyun did not take much advantage of Yang Sidon. When they parted, he gave Yang Sidon 10 kilograms of fruit flower honey. The 3 said goodbye to each other and left Wanfulao. Yang Sidon returned to the shop opened by the Yang family in the Huaishu market. Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun were both in the Huaishu market for the first time, so they could only follow a map of the Huaishu market to return to Lingxiao Pavilion. Lingxiao Pavilion is a 3-story building with a large attic with a backyard. There are only 2 people running this shop, namely Ling Yunfu, the 4th elder of the family who is good at business, and Ling Pengshen, who is the 2nd generation of the 2nd generation. Although it is late at night, there are still many visitors in the shop because of the Huaishu meeting. As soon as Ling Pengyun and Ling Pengyun entered the treasure pavilion, 2 people came to greet them. Finally, we have waited for you 2 little guys. The sun will rise soon and the auction will start. Let's go directly. 3rd ancestor, why are you here too? Ling Pengyun heard this familiar voice, looked up and saw that it was the patriarch of the family, Ling Yunhong, and expressed his doubts. Ling Yunhong did not hide his thoughts and smiled. There will be some 2nd-level cultivation pills at this auction. I planned to buy some, so I came here. Ling Pengyun was tactful and did not ask too much. He followed the steps of Ling Yunhong, Ling Ruxin, and Ling Pengyun, and walked along the road to the auction venue. On the way, most of the cultivators were heading for the auction, which made the road very crowded. In order to avoid missing the auction, Ling Yunhong, a foundation building expert, directly summoned the Immortal Crane King and took Ling Pengyun and the other 2 to the Huaishu auction house. Landing at the gate of the auction house, Ling Yunhong relied on his foundation building skills and did not queue up, and directly took Ling Pengyun and the other 2 into the auction house. If ordinary cultivators wanted to enter the auction house, they had to queue up and hand in the spirit stones. Chapter 75, Wind Shadow Peng's Spirit Egg. The Huaishu auction has 3 floors. The first floor is the lobby, and the 2nd and 3rd floors are private rooms. Although the Ling family is a foundation building family, it is a newly promoted foundation building family with a weak foundation. In the auction facing the entire Balingman territory, the Ling family is not qualified to go to the private rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floors. They can only sit in the lobby like ordinary casual cultivators or some cultivators from key training families. In the center of the lobby, there is a round table about 10 feet long. Around the table, there are nearly 1,000 chairs, where Ling Pengyun and others sit. The auction has not started yet, and Ling Pengyun has nothing to do. He took out the auction promotional picture he got from the female stall owner of the Liu family and looked at the hundreds of spiritual objects he had not seen before, looking for what he needed. After carefully looking at it for hundreds of breaths, he really found another spiritual object besides the flying monster egg. After about half an instant stick of time, when the nearly 1,000 seats in the lobby were mostly occupied, a dull bronze bell sounded. The noise around also disappeared. An old man wearing the Taoist robe of Bailing sect and with a wisp of white beard walked up to the stone platform in the center of the hall. The old man slightly cupped his hands and smiled. Everyone, I am Yang Hu of Bailing sect. I will host this auction this time. This auction will be the same as before. The highest bidder wins. Those who don't have enough spiritual stones can use spiritual objects to auction on the spot in exchange for spiritual stones. Although the old man's voice was not loud, it was heard throughout the auction under the effect of the small spell of sound enhancement. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man summoned a glass bottle specially used to store blood from the storage bag on his waist and spoke again. 10 jin of the first class, top-grade demon beast fiery crow's blood. This blood is a good material for refining top-grade spiritual ink. The base price is 5 spiritual stones. Each bid cannot be less than 5 spiritual stones. 10 spiritual stones. 15 spiritual stones. 20 spiritual stones. Fiery crows are of the fire element and are not very big. Each fiery crow has at most 1 or 2 jin of blood in its body. It is extremely difficult to collect tenjin. The blood of this fiery crow is also a good material for refining talisman ink. Drawing fire talismans with this talisman ink can increase the power of fire talismans. Not long after, this bottle of fiery crow's blood was bought by a middle-aged monk with a bloated figure and a slightly luxurious air for 35 spiritual stones. After this person took the spiritual object, a maid with a better face came up to the auction table in the backstage, took the bottle of fiery crow's blood from Yang Hua's hand, and handed it to the bloated middle-aged monk sitting in the 1,000-seat lobby, handing over the money and the goods. During this time, Yang Hua, who was hosting the auction, took out a golden vest from his storage bag and introduced it. The second auction item is a first-level medium-grade magic weapon, the golden silk inner armor. It is made of silk spit out by a first-level high-grade golden silkworm. This armor has extremely strong defense and is enough to block the full force of a first-level high-grade attack magic weapon. The starting price is 80 spiritual stones, and the bid cannot be less than 5 spiritual stones. 85 spiritual stones. 90 spiritual stones. 95 spiritual stones. This golden silk inner armor is a good item for saving lives, so it is naturally sought after by the middle and late stage key training cultivators present, and the price is gradually soaring. In just a few dozen breaths, this golden silk inner armor was bid by a late stage key training cultivator at a price far exceeding that of an ordinary first level medium grade magic weapon, 110 spiritual stones. Afterwards, Yang Hua, who was hosting the auction, took out nearly 100 spiritual objects for auction one after another. Although these spiritual objects were all needed by key training cultivators, their quality had been rising, and the transaction price had also risen accordingly, and the atmosphere at the venue gradually became heated. Just after Yang Hua successfully auctioned off a bottle of healing elixir white jade pill in his hand, a maid, carrying a tray covered with a red cloth, came up to the auction table and walked to Yang Hua's side. Yang Hua, who was presiding over the auction, lifted the red cloth, and a huge cocky egg the size of a dinner plate was revealed on the tray. This is a spiritual egg of a first-class top-grade demon beast, the earth rock turtle. The egg is full of vitality and will hatch after some time. The earth rock turtle is mainly defensive, and the earth rock turtle clan has a certain probability of breaking through to the foundation building realm. It is possible that this spiritual turtle will also have the foundation building bloodline after hatching. Even if this turtle does not have the foundation building bloodline, it can still be a great help to ordinary key training cultivators with its strong defensive ability. The reserve price of this egg is 50 spirit stones, and each increase in price cannot be less than 5 spirit stones. As soon as the words fell, people in the auction hall started to bid. After several price increases, this turtle egg was also bought by a man from a private room on the second floor for 200 spirit stones. Afterwards, 2 more spirit eggs born from first-class top-grade demon beasts with strong bloodlines were auctioned, and sold for 195 spirit stones and 230 spirit stones respectively. After the 2 monster eggs were sold, another maid came from the backstage, carrying a tray covered with red cloth, and walked up to the auction table and walked to Yang Hua's side. Yang Hua lifted the red cloth, and on the tray was a giant green egg that was about the same size as the earth rock turtle egg. The Ling Pengyun egg is finally here. Ling Pengyun, who was sitting in the lobby, saw the giant green egg and his eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, "A spiritual egg laid by Feng Yingpeng of the 2nd grade inferior grade. The egg is rich in vitality and can be hatched. Feng Yingpeng is famous for its speed. It can travel 1,500 miles a day in the early stage of key training, 3,000 miles a day in the middle stage of key training, and 5,000 miles a day in the late stage of key training. If it is cultivated to the early stage of foundation building, it can travel 10,000 miles a day. In addition to its extremely fast speed, the strength of this peng bird is also good. The Immortal Cultivation families in my Balingman territory must not miss it. This peng bird egg has the blood of foundation building. It is possible that in the hands of your big families, it can be cultivated to the foundation building stage and become the guardian spirit beast of your family. The base price of this peng bird egg is 100 spirit stones, and each increase in price cannot be less than 5 spirit stones. Flying monsters are extremely important to cultivators, not to mention a spirit egg with the blood of a foundation building monster. As long as it is hatched and cultivated, it can at least be cultivated to the late stage of key training. After being tempted by Yang Hua's words, many cultivators immediately bid. Ling Pengyun was the first to bid. 110 spirit stones, 120 spirit stones, 130 spirit stones. After more than a dozen rounds of bidding, the price of Feng Yingpeng became higher and higher, reaching 350 spirit stones. This price also made fewer and fewer people bid. Except for the VIP in a private room on the second floor, there were only Ling Pengyun in the lobby and a young member of the Huxiao family, who was also a foundation-building family in Huaishu County. The female stall owner of the Liu family, Liu Yuxin, who had sold Solhua chicken spirit eggs to Ling Pengyun before, was sitting next to the seat of the young Liu family. Liu Yuxin looked up and saw that in addition to the person in the private room on the second floor who came out to bid for Feng Yingpeng bird eggs with her elder brother, the other person was Ling Pengyun, who bought the Sunhua chicken eggs from her. She frowned and muttered to herself, "I didn't expect that the Ling family cultivator actually came here for the Feng Yingpeng egg. If I had known, I shouldn't have told that kid that there were flying monster eggs at the auction. If Big Brother missed this Feng Yingpeng egg, I would be guilty. But how could this silly girl have thought of it?" During this Huaishu small meeting, how many people who came to the Huaishu market would not come to see the auction? Even if this silly girl didn't tell him, Ling Pengyun would still come to the auction house and still bid. Ling Yanhong, who was sitting next to Ling Pengyun, saw that Ling Pengyun was hesitant and wanted to raise the price, so he quickly advised him. "Pengyun, although the spiritual egg of the foundation-building monster beast has good blood, this bird only has the blood of the foundation-building stage. The probability of it being able to truly build a foundation is probably less than half. Now this price has exceeded the normal price of the Feng Yingpeng bird egg. If you don't bid for it within 400 spirit stones, just give up. Don't waste spirit stones. It's not easy to earn spirit stones." Ling Pengyun nodded slightly after hearing this. He also knew that this price far exceeded the value of the Feng Yingpeng egg. Although this Feng Yingpeng egg has the blood of the foundation-building monster beast, whether this egg can grow to the foundation-building stage is another matter. Moreover, the resources and time required to cultivate this bird are unpredictable. However, this Feng Yingpeng bird is indeed his favorite thing, and he can't give it up. Even if the Feng Yingpeng egg is not qualified enough to be promoted to the foundation-building stage after hatching, Ling Pengyun has the primordial creation energy which is enough to improve its qualifications. As for resources, judging from his talent in refining equipment and spirit plants, it is enough to support the cultivation of a spirit beast. Ling Pengyun gritted his teeth and continued to bid. 360 spiritual stones. 370 spiritual stones. 380 spiritual stones. In the end, Ling Pengyun won the bid for the penbird egg at a high price of 450 spiritual stones. After a while, a maid came to Ling Pengyun's seat with a Feng Yingpeng bird egg. Although Ling Pengyun paid the 450 spiritual stones with great pain, he was very excited when he took the Feng Yingpeng spirit egg from the maid. After the Feng Yingpeng egg is hatched, it will not only be his spiritual beast, but also a helper in his future battles. This time, the Feng Yingpeng egg was successfully auctioned at the auction. Now we just have to wait for the Earth Spring Spirit Milk to be auctioned. Ling Pengyun waved his hand to put the beast bag in his hand into the storage bag, looked at the auction table, and muttered to himself with fiery eyes. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.